bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Well, good evening. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, June 28th. Feels like a Monday. Craziness in the world. 180 days into the new year. 186 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Wow, one of those days, again, in the world. We'll get to all the breaking news here in just a second. I just saw something else flash across my screen. But tonight we have one of the very best back with us. Peter Levenda is here. He's going to give us his view on UFOs. One of the very best. It's going to be a great night. Tomorrow night, Fader Night, John Rappaport and the No More Fake Newsroom. Thursday night, we're off. Friday night, we're going to be broadcasting from the Roswell Festival out in Roswell, New Mexico. Friday night, same place, same time. Everything's good. Sort of the same place. Same place being where you go every night. All right? We'll be live. And we got everything set up. It's going to be a great trip. And talk to some Fadernauts today that are going to be out there. It's going to be really cool. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing everybody out there. It's going to be great. And so we're broadcasting live Friday night. Clyde Lewis is broadcasting 3 nights from Roswell. He's doing he's broadcasting from the McDonald's in Roswell tomorrow night. And then Thursday night, he's at the museum, same room that we're broadcasting from, the library. And then Friday night, he's at an auditorium. And so he's doing 3 nights there. And I'm kind of bummed that I can't go and crash his show because I would if I could. But we're going to miss all of that. But we'll hang out with Clyde on Saturday. And KGRA is going to be out there, too, as well. Race Hobbs and the crew. The Roswell Festival is a big deal. And I just can't wait. It's the motherland. And so there you go. So that's Friday night. And then we'll be back in town on Sunday and then hitting the ground running here. Now, I'm not going to make the announcement tonight. I'm going to do this tomorrow night. And we have been debating all day today. There are a few out there that know exactly what I'm talking about making this big announcement about what's going down next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday next week on Fade to Black. It is going to be, well, let me put it to you this way. It's not going to be earthquake proof. It's not going to withstand that. It is that big. So we have a huge week next week. But so I just decided to do this. I'm going to announce it tomorrow night on the show tomorrow night, and I'll announce it out at Roswell too as well. Okay? But you're just going to have to. It's killing me because it is that big. It is really that big. But, I'd rather do it this way, old style radio. Do the teaser today, and then tomorrow we'll make the announcement. And instructions have been given, and so I'll say it again so it's on the air. We're not going to post or do anything until the show tomorrow night, and then we'll do the blitz out there, and we will announce what's going on here next week. But it is going to be extraordinary. Okay? Worked really hard. And I'm now going to say this, too, to the few select people that know what's going on. Keep your mouth shut. Do not post. Do not tweet. Do not hint. Do not do it. And if you have done anything, I would suggest deleting it now before your fearless leader catches you, because I always do. Just like my daughters. Rita and I have told them ever since they were little wee ones, you're never going to get away with anything because your dad and I have done it all. You will always get caught. And what's funny, every time they thought that they were getting away with something, they got caught. And when you're a parent, nothing feels better than going back to your kids going, see, I told you. And they just wonder, how do you guys always catch us? It's because we were kids once, too. All right? So next week, it's going to be extraordinary. Yeah, it's going to be huge, Derek. Stop playing around. And it has to be this way. I got to do the teaser because let me enjoy myself. Just let me do the build-up, and then tomorrow night, I get to give you guys all a gift. All right? It'll be worth it. Trust me. All right, tonight, Peter Levenda is here. Tomorrow night, Fader Night, special Fader Night with John Rappaport. And then Friday night, we're out in Roswell. Okay, so we'll see everybody in Roswell. Follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio, Facebook, YouTube. You know what to do. Follow, like, and subscribe. Email throughout the show, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. In Twitter, use the hashtag F2B. That is the sandbox. Any questions or comments during the show, hashtag F2BQ. All right, there you go. Subscribe to the podcast, too. If you want to support the show, it's $2 a month. You've got almost 500 archived shows. All platforms. We have free apps. Everything that you need is done. It's the best. Go and do it. $2 a month. Almost 500 archive shows. There's nothing else out there like this. And we would do it for free if we could. We just can't. It's because the company that we use charges for the podcast. And that's as low as we could go. I tried to do it for $1. They just wouldn't go for it. So $2 per month. Help support the show. Okay, there you go. Also, Life Change Tea. Oh, man. I'm going to tell everybody, there's some things need to be kept private, so I'm going to keep most of this private. But I went through a little teeny tiny little medical issue procedure this week. Okay? Nothing below the waist. So don't think that, it was something like that. It was above the waist. And but I got to tell you, Life Change Tea and the olive leaf drops that I am taking right now, amazing. And the moringa extract drops that I'm taking right now, amazing. And helped me get through it, okay? Ronnie has one of the best companies in the world. I'm going to tell you guys right now, you should go to his website and get the olive leaf extract. It is amazing. I don't know how olive leaf can taste so good, too. That's the other thing. But this olive leaf extract is amazing. And everybody around me, my family, co-workers, everybody at Fade to Black, everybody is on the Life Change Tea program. Go and do it. Use the promo code Jimmy. Just go. Click on the banner at the website. That's all you got to do. Promo code Jimmy. Free shipping. What more do you want? Go to the specials page and get it done. Ronnie's going to be with us, by the way, on Monday. All right. Check out also Studio Dome. That is seriously one of the best deals on the net. 2 SB-B2 speakers, their TWS True Wireless Stereo System, $129. Promo code JCRTWS. All right? There you go. So we're going to be at Roswell this Friday. And then once we get back from Roswell, we turn right around and we're up in Sacramento, California at the Awareness Life Expo, Crown Plaza Hotel, August 12th, 13th, and 14th. August 12th is the special VIP party where we will be broadcasting live. All right? So there you go. All the links and everything that you need is over on our website. Today, Elon Musk is 45 years old. Mel Brooks is 90. I read the other day that they've been trying to do, at 90 years old, he wants to direct Spaceballs Part 2. Trying to put this together with Rick Moranis. Yeah, and they're trying to get it together at 90 years old. I guess that's his swan song, Spaceballs 2. There you go. The balls are back. Mel Brooks, today, 90. John Cusack, today, is 50. And I don't know why we did this over the last week, but Rita and I went through this, like, John Cusack phase. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's his birthday, but it was just popping up everywhere. We watched all these Cusack films. Love them all, right? Okay. Enough of that. Grosse Point Blank and so forth. But we watched a movie this week called Maps to the Stars. Check that flick out. Don't read what the critics had to say. Don't do anything. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Go and watch Maps to the Stars. That movie will mess you up. It's like a combination of like Magnolia and I can't even explain it. It's harsh but funny. Unbelievable. Great acting too as well. Anyway, everybody in the film is great. John Cusack today, 50 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today is Pat Morita. Remember Pat? 1932, 2005, died at the age of 73. Of course, he played Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid films. And if you're really old like me, you remember him from Happy Days. Yeah. And his role in the first Karate Kid film actually earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Happy birthday, Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita. All right. On this day in history, 1992, I lived it. I went through it just before 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Yeah. A 7.3 magnitude quake struck in Landers out in the desert 100 miles east of Los Angeles. 7.3 kicked off. And then 3 hours later, a second 6.3 magnitude quake hit Big Bear, California. That was a crazy, crazy Sunday morning. Fader fact, 1/3 of the murders in the United States go unsolved. And that is a Fader fact. Okay, let's get to it. It happened about 6 hours ago. At least 36 people have been killed, with an estimate that the number could rise closer to 50. And as of this show starting, 147 wounded in a terror attack on Istanbul airport in Turkey about 6.5 hours ago. 3 bombers were also killed, with eyewitness reports stating that there was a group of 7 armed men right outside of the airport. 7 gunshots broke out. 4 of the 7 ran from the scene, with the remaining 3 blowing themselves up. 2 suicide bombers blew themselves up in or around the airport by detonating explosives just before and after the security checkpoints. In 2 of the videos that I've seen, one explosion was outside. It appears to be outside, near the middle of the front of the facade of the building, of the entrance for arrivals. In another video, a suicide bomber walks past a police officer who is behind a wall. Now, it appears that he has shot his way through the security checkpoint. He gets to the other side. Now he's actually physically inside of the airport, and he's walking past what looks to me to be a magazine stand rack, right? It's lit up. You can see the magazines, the color. And he's walking past that, and around the corner is a police officer who's standing behind the wall in the shadows. And he surprises the bomber, apparently, from what I can make out in the video, shooting him in the back. And he falls to the ground. And when he falls to the ground, he drops his gun, which looks like an AK-47. It's big. And it skids across the ground away from him, maybe, 10 feet away, 15 feet away. And he doesn't go for his gun. He lies there for about 10 seconds, rolls over on his back, and then detonates his bomb. He didn't make a move for his gun. And it also, the police officer that shoots him in the back that was standing around the corner, it looks to me, I haven't heard anybody say anything yet, but I've watched the video dozens of times trying to make out what's going on. It looks like he shot him a second time. I believe that he did. We'll find out more over the next couple of days. But it looks like he shot him a second time and then ran away because I think he saw the vest. There was something there because the gunman is down. The bomber is down. His AK-47 is away from him. The police officer has now shot him once, maybe even twice, and he goes up, kind of takes a look, and then takes off running. So maybe he was watching the suicide bomber make a move for the button or whatever's the detonator. But so he takes off running, and then the bomb goes off. Now, there's no reports as of the broadcast today about the third bomber. Nothing. No video, there's no reports, where, when, nothing. They're being very quiet about this, but yet they say that all three bombers, key word here, died. Now, one of the bombs went off. If you look straight down at the top of the airport, just imagine a rectangle, right? Okay, so the long side of the rectangle. The one bomb went off right in the middle of the rectangle. Then if you go to the right, like if you're heading east, there's a little grassy area right there. And that's where the guy entered the airport and got past security where he got shot in the back. So it was spread apart. But what happened to the third bomber? There's nothing about that. Now, for sure, there was an AK-47 that was found at the scene. I've seen photographs of that. And where that bomber blew himself up. A total of 49 ambulances were sent to the airport. Turkey now is saying that it was ISIS. Nobody would know more about that than certainly Turkey. So they have stepped forward and said that ISIS is involved. I don't know what they know. I don't know if there's 4 gunmen loose. If there were intending to be additional suicide bombers, I don't know. I don't know any of this information. But I have collected as much as I can from every news source that I have. And not everybody is coming clean with this. So, for instance, all of the mainstream sites are not mentioning that there were 7 armed men that opened fire outside of the airport. Okay, I've got a couple of outside sources that have given this back to me. And numerous witnesses said that when the gunfire broke out, 3 guys broke in one direction. Those turned out to be the bombers. 4 guys split in the other direction and ran towards the parking garage and escaped. Okay, so whether they captured those guys or not, I don't know. Okay, but they're getting this information from somewhere. And the other thing that is coming clear to me that I think we're going to find out more as time goes on, that there was definitely gunfire that broke out before the explosions. The entrances to the arrivals area at the airport, when the doors open, the glass doors, when they open, you immediately are going through X-ray machines and metal detectors, and they have armed security right there. So to get into the airport, you're going to have to shoot your way through if you're going to go in there with AK-47s and bombs and whatnot. So that apparently is what happened with the second bomber. The first explosion that happened outside of the security checkpoint. It could have been a lot worse. And the reason why it could have been a lot worse is because the gunfire broke out. Security forces are ready, guns are drawn, and that's ultimately what happened. So people had a chance to respond and take cover and run away. These guys weren't able to get into the airport and get to a crowded area where there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. That didn't happen. When you look at the first bombing that happened outside, you can clearly see the police are trying to get a perimeter going, and they're trying to get people to move away. So there you go. Now, this is my observation, though, and this is what I find interesting here, is that, and I've had this thought for many, many, many years, but it seems to be more true every day. And just listen to me for a second. I know that it feels like there's a lot of radical Muslim ISIS terrorism against the West. And I know that's the feeling that we get. San Bernardino and, of course, Orlando and Fort Hood, Boston. We feel that. It's certainly inside our borders here. And I understand that. And Paris and so anyway, I get that. But it's nothing compared to Muslim on Muslim terrorism. Think about that for a second. Okay, ISIS, if it was ISIS, Muslim radicals, whatever, today did what they did it at Istanbul's airport. Not an American airport, not a German airport or French or, Heathrow. It's not what happened. And when you stop and think about the terrorism that has gone down in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Syria, of course, and Iraq, of course, and Libya, and Egypt, and Yemen, I mean, it's going off every single day. And this Muslim on Muslim situation, we need to step back and try to figure this out a little bit more, because I understand how ISIS was created, potentially, us, the CIA, and Barack making stupid decisions. I understand all of that. That's not where I'm going with this. This has been going on way before ISIS. And the more that this continues, it's the Muslims themselves that are going to step up and go, wait a minute. Okay, I mean, seriously, enough is enough. If it is indeed real, and I believe that it is, before we go and say this is a false flag or, that's all going to come out and crisis actors, okay, we need to take a chill pill, back up, and just observe what is going on here. Pakistan has had their share of attacks lately. Turkey, now, I mean, it's obviously they've got action going on the Syrian border. It's right there. The airport is 900 miles away. But this now, I mean, it is occurring so frequently now through that area that this is like a Muslim on Muslim thing. The one country that seems to be insulated from it is Iran. Now, one would have to ask why. Good security? I don't know. Obviously, a fundamentalist regime has been in place for a long time. But nothing in Iran. Saudi Arabia's been hit. Everybody's been hit. It's very interesting. It's more of a Muslim on Muslim thing. Sure, they've reached out to the West. They've touched us. They have. And we know this. But it's a Muslim on Muslim thing. And I got to tell you, if I'm afraid of terrorism and I'm Muslim, think about that for a second. That's who's being targeted. The safest place to be is in the West, apparently. And you need to think about that. It's a Muslim on Muslim thing. And at what point do you just, if you're Muslim, do you just go, this has got to stop? This is crazy. Unbelievable. All right. Another news, really quick. A North Carolina water park has closed after a teen girl was killed by a brain-eating amoeba. The 18-year-old got the death disease while taking part in a whitewater rafting trip. Authorities said that Lauren Seitz was exposed to the amoeba at the U.S. National Whitewater Center when she was riding a raft that overturned. Initial test results of 11 water samples found the amoeba DNA, and it was present throughout the whitewater system. Is that crazy? NASA is considering using the Curiosity rover to take close-up images of potential water sources on Mars in the hope that it won't harm any potential life that it may find there. While NASA's Mars Curiosity rover has been roaming around the red planet since it landed back in August 2012, scientists are eager to investigate dark streaks on Mars's mountains, which they believe to be streams of flowing water. Pending approval for the mission extension, it is hoped as Curiosity climbs higher up Mount Sharp, it can collect more accurate data and some cupfuls of flowing water. There you go. Well, China, check this out, after successfully sending its new generation Long March 7 carrier rocket into space, has outlined a timetable for future launches designed to assemble and eventually operate a 60-ton space station by 2022. They announced it this past Saturday, and China says that in mid-September, they will send its second orbiting space lab, it's called the Tiangong 2, into low Earth orbit. All right, let's get out of here. That's all the news I have for you right now. We'll do some more right after Peter Levenda, and he's going to be here in 2 short minutes. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me right now on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Tonight's the night. Peter Levenda is here. He's one of the best. And we're going to talk Levenda on UFOs on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, the Planet Army host. Jimmy Church, stay right there. When I come back, Peter Levenda is going to be in the batter's box.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here reminding you that June is Health Awareness Month, sponsored by GetTheTea.com. Many of you have heard our tea commercial, maybe visited the website, but haven't committed because, well, you just don't know. Skeptical. We understand. Just to remind you, our tea is not just tea. In fact, very little tea. Life Change Tea is a unique blend of 8 different herbs, removing intruders that attack your health. You brew our tea to make the concentrate, you add water, and put in the fridge. 2 8-ounce glasses a day, and life will be good. Visit us at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And this month is lots of fun stuff with Health Awareness Month. You could be picked and receive your order absolutely free. You never know. Read the testimonies and try our products. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And for great health tips, visit my YouTube channel at Health Matters Now, where you can learn about health tips and how products work on your body. Join me, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade-or-Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out. We don't bite. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Peter's website is PeterLevenda.com. You can also just go to Jimmy Church Radio, click on Peter, and it'll take you straight there. Any questions for myself or Peter tonight? Hashtag F2BQ. And I'll see it right here, live in the studio in real time. Let's get to it. Peter Levenda has researched material for his books over the course of 25 years, visiting more than 40 countries, detained in half of them, and gaining access to temples, prisons, military installations, and government documents. He is the author, of course, of Sinister Forces 1, 2, and 3, The Hitler Legacy, Ratline, and Tantric Temples. You can view his published work as trilogies. The 3 volumes of Sinister Forces make up the American trilogy. The 3 volumes of Unholy Alliance, Ratline, and The Hitler Legacy make up the Nazi trilogy. The Secret Temple, The Angel, and the Sorcerer, and the Dark Lord make up the Western Esoteric trilogy. Or is that a four-logy? Stairway to Heaven, Tantric Temples, and the upcoming The Tantric Alchemist will make up the Initiatory trilogy. He has appeared in the TNT documentary Faces of Evil as an expert on Nazi history, with a special regard to occult and esoteric practices. He has also appeared on the History Channel special Nazi Prophecies. He's been on Coast to Coast with me, and of course, many times here on Fade to Black. Let's welcome back our good friend, Peter Levenda. Peter, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. I must be exhausted, though, after all of that. Damn.
You're a rock star. You know that.
Well, I'm a rock star on a lot of coffee. You know what I'm saying?
Peter.
I am tripping on caffeine here.
Thank you so much, man. And it's always great to hear your voice. And, you know, the thing is, the shows that we have done together over the last year and a half, it's going on 2 years. It's kind of crazy to think about. They've been some of the best. And the audience knows that, and they're just excited. And I can't believe it's been so long since we've had you on the show. But you've been out there, again, researching, doing your thing, dropping out of sight, going dark on us. And I'm excited about what this next year is going to unfold with some of the stuff that you're working on that we can't really talk about now, but the audience will understand. It's going to be great when it happens. But are you tired? Are you out there? I know that you've been flying around the world and around the country doing stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's been great though. I mean it's you meet a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people, you get their input, their insights into things, and of course you do a lot of research that you just normally can't do from from your laptop. You got to get out there sometimes and mix it up, and it's been great. It's a little exhausting, sure, but at the same time, it's you do a lot of good work that way. You get a lot accomplished, so I'm pretty happy about it.
When you do what you do, Peter, I want to kind of start off here, but I also want to talk about some of the things currently going on, like what just happened today in Turkey, and how that rise of fanaticism has taken off. And you've done a lot of research in that. We've talked about it. And then, this news happens today when, you're booked on the show. So we kind of got to go visit that. But let me back up. You've done a lot of research into dangerous, treacherous areas, not only logistically and geographically, but the subject matter itself is pretty dang dangerous, and the people that you're going out there and looking into. So now you're branching off into another area, and part of it is UFOs, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. Do you feel the same kind of threat as you go into some of these other fringe topics that you have, like dealing with Nazis or religion and other things that you've been doing for so many years?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because it's not the same thing, because you're not staring at people who want to kill you, in their face, or people who want to kill people like you, let's put it that way. But when you're dealing with the subject of UFOs and the paranormal, you come into it with a little baggage, because you know that other people before you have fallen pretty hard after investigating this material. There have been suicides. You have Morris Jessup, you have James McDonald, you have people like that who, were very serious researchers, people who really put their reputations on the line, people who were scientifically trained in many cases, and they start to investigate this material. And it's not that, an alien comes along and kills them, but it's the subject matter itself can sometimes be deadly. It has this weird effect on people's psyches. Of course, facing hostility by your peers is always, a source of tension and stress. And like it was for McDonald, he was publicly ridiculed by members of Congress when he tried to give a presentation there. They talked about little green men and all the rest of it. Total disrespect for a man who was, a legitimate scientist all of his life. So that it's a dangerous field, but not for the same reasons. So when you're talking to Nazis or you're talking to terrorists, as I have, you're talking to people like that, you know what the threat is. You kind of know where they're coming from. You know what their ideology is. You know why you would be considered a threat or an enemy, at least somebody who's not part of their playbook. But in this field, you don't know where the threat's going to come from. Now, you can assume that it's going to be, you're going to be ridiculed, you're going to be laughed at for even bringing it up. That's going away these days, little by little. There's gradually more acceptance of this field in circles that before would never have taken it seriously. Sometimes they've reinterpreted the UFO phenomenon to make it more palatable to themselves. And in other cases, they're just looking at it, face on, and they're saying, well, what can we make of this? What is it really about? So it's getting better. But the potential threat to people who really delve into this and who really start doing the footwork, who start talking to people, that threat still, I think, remains. I mean, people are still being lied to. There's still disinformation out there. There are still people who don't want, I don't want to say the truth to come out. They don't want their perspective on the truth to come out. So they're going to try to defend it and protect it as much as possible. So what you're nervous about, in my case, mostly, is the person I'm talking to lying to me? Are they credible, number one? Do they have credentials? Okay, let's say they have credentials, and you've back-checked and you know who they are. Step two, are they being deliberately deceitful? Step three, if they're not being deliberately deceitful, are they being deceitful anyway, simply because they don't know what they're talking about, or they are operating on bad information? This is really the problem with this kind of investigation, because there's nowhere you can turn to. There's nowhere you can go for verification. You can't go to the alien itself and say, is this guy telling me the truth? So it's based on a lot of people who know little pieces of the subject matter, but not the whole picture. And that's what's dangerous.
I have seen, and again, to the audience, I apologize for not disclosing this, but out of respect to Peter, but I have seen some photographs, still images of some of Peter's research that he has been doing over this past year. And now I'm just going to say, I'm going to go this far, Peter. I'm not going to cross the line. But the people that you are standing with in these photographs are somewhat familiar to ufology, but are not, and are very much in an official capacity inside administrations and our government right now. I was shocked. I was like, holy crap, elbow to elbow. Yep. Now, are you getting close to something here? I mean, because I'm not in those photographs, right? I mean, I look at these and I'm just like, Peter is right there. And I know a lot of researchers out there that would be envious of you of being the person standing in these photographs. And you know exactly what I'm talking about and alluding to.
I sure do.
How close are you to something, my friend?
Well, see, this is the question. I'm fortunate right now to be in a situation and to be working with a team of people, with a group of people who have the kind of access that you need to move this subject a little bit further down the field. We have a problem. Let me backtrack a little bit on this and say that I came to this whole subject of ufology through a side track, through a side door into the building. I never had a UFO experience. I never actually saw a UFO in my life, still haven't. That didn't mean that for me they didn't exist, because obviously the bulk of the information is so heavy that, I haven't seen quantum particles either, but I know they exist. So I went into this with a very open mind, but I didn't go into it from a ufology or a UFO point of view. I was dragged into it kind of because of the political connections. Right. So I started studying this thing. I started studying American politics, deep politics, you might say, as Peter Dale Scott calls it. I started coming from that end, looking at the sinister forces of the underlying the American experience. And I came across the name Fred Krisman. And it was coming across that name in the context of the Kennedy assassination that sort of opened up a whole sort of secret door in American history into this whole demimonde of ufology, because as we all know, as your listeners know, Fred Krisman was there at the initial UFO experience of the 20th century or modern, let's say, post-war experience, and that was, of course, Maury Island, the Maury Island affair.
Right.
So we have Fred Krisman out there with a UFO that supposedly was falling apart in debris over Maury Island, and there were pieces of it, and there were 2 Air Force officers who had a box of it on their plane. They crashed. All this wild stuff was happening in 1947, this month, 1947 in June, and then within 20 years, Fred Krisman is now a suspect in the Kennedy assassination. So I started to think, well, how weird is that? What's that connection? And I went from there to realize that Guy Bannister was an FBI agent in the Pacific Northwest investigating UFOs at the same time as Maury Island and Kenneth Arnold and all of that, and reporting directly to Hoover. And his telexes and his airtels back to Hoover always bore the designation X, a special Project X or SM-X. These were the X files, right? And Guy Bannister, of course, then wound up later in New Orleans with, Lee Harvey Oswald and that whole thing that Jim Garrison was investigating. So I couldn't extricate the UFO experience from the political experience, from what we went through in terms of the assassinations, in terms of politics in the 20th century. There was this UFO thread running through all of it.
Yeah, and it wasn't a loose connection. That's the thing. It wasn't a loose connection. Those are deliberate connections.
Yes, I agree 100%. This was not like some weird circumstantial, coincidence thing. It was more and more and more after that. Once I started pulling at that thread, then you started, you were inundated with this material. It became kind of stupid. There was Lee Harvey Oswald bragging he was going to get a job at NASA. There was all these rumors about NASA somehow being involved in it. There was, of course, the Nazis we brought over under paperclip, and there was an excerpt went on and on. There was the famous 9 that we've talked about in Maine. These wealthy patrons, these blue-blooded Americans, having a seance and talking to a flying saucer at the end of 1952, and getting their marching orders from them. And the connection of the 9 to the Kennedy assassination, again, the assassinations seemed to be there wherever I looked. So I came into the whole UFO field from a completely different angle.
Is that an advantage? And before you answer that, because you're not one of the familiar researchers in ufology, with the research that you're doing now, man, I want to say more, but I can't. But the research that you're doing now, because you're not one of those familiar faces, is it easier for you?
Yes, I think so. I think that's probably what made my characteristics as a researcher for this particular project more palatable, maybe, or more interesting. I think it's because I came at it from that other perspective. I was not coming at this thing from the point of view of a true believer, right? Somebody who just believed everything about UFOs that came down the pike. I was somebody who was looking at this thing as a political phenomenon, as a national security issue, as well as the existential phenomenon that it is. And I think that it was once again, it was that Amsterdam conference, that presentation that I did some years ago, I think that gathered that kind of interest in my work, because I was coming at it from that point of view. I was not rehashing. I mean, I don't think I was. I wasn't rehashing UFO stuff that had gone on before. I wasn't really interested in rehashing every sighting. I think there's been enough of that. Right now I'm in a room where my research is being conducted. I'm surrounded by over 150 books on UFOs alone, not to count, documents, PDF files, and, classified stuff from, declassified from CIA, FBI, and everybody else on the subject, and stuff on the sciences and stuff on philosophy and archaeology and anthropology and all the rest of it, in addition to all of that. So I'm coming at this from a different perspective. I mean, I think that the group that I'm with, the colleagues that I'm working with, have this intention that we don't want to go over old ground. What we want to do is to bring this subject to the next level. And the only way we can do that is to start on the premise that this phenomenon is real. It exists. Let's stop trying to prove it. Let's consider it already proven that it exists. We just don't know what it is. And let's go on from there. So what we're trying to do is show the importance of a scientific and a rational approach to this, which does not exclude the sightings, which does not exclude, for instance, the alien abduction scenarios. We want to include that. This is important. It's all part of the same phenomenon. There's something very real and very tangible taking place. And what we need to do is bring this to the next level, then bring ufology as far as we can in our humble way, bring it to another level. So let's up the conversation. Let's up the ante on this. Let's look at this from a different point of view. And the only way to do that, from our point of view, is to start inviting people with specific expertise in various of the sciences and national security and military political things, bring them into the discussion. Let's not go on the basis that everybody's lying to us, that the government is hiding things from us, the military is hiding things from us. Let's take a different tack, because every time we take that oppositional approach, nothing happens. We get no information.
Well, I'll say this. It wasn't so much the threads that you connected in Amsterdam for everybody, because it was an amazing presentation, and it's been watched, I have no idea, a million times. It's not that, Peter. It was the pointy hats. And when you did that for everybody, that was the closer, man. That was.
I love the hats, man.
Yeah, that's what closed it. It was kind of fascinating. Now, I want to share this with you. I haven't told you this, even though we've talked a lot just recently. But for me, I've always known something is going on. I've witnessed a few things in the skies, and Rita and I have had a couple of things over the years, and I've interviewed all of the top researchers and authors out there, and contactees and abductees and so forth. I've done my share. So I know that something is going on. I've done my research, for decades. But last month, out at Contact in the Desert, I'm out there with Rita, and they're doing a night vision thing out there, and there's about 100, 150, 175 people out on the edge of this cliff. And I go out there. Now, I'm not going to tell the whole story. I'm just going to share this part with you. I myself, personally, and I've gone on the record publicly with this. This is what I saw, Peter. Off to my left, I saw a giant green chrome ball off 2, 3, 4 miles off to my left, way across the valley. And I see it, and it's shooting from ground level, quarter mile off the ground or something. It's on the ground, and it's shooting up in front of me. It's off to my left, and it's shooting up into the sky. And I look at now, I can see that it's a green physical ball, like this chrome thing. And then I look at it in the night vision goggles, and I follow this thing for 3 minutes, 4 minutes on this rocket mega Mach trajectory. I don't know, Mach 5, Mach 10, I don't know, but it's hauling balls, man. It's going, and it's going up straight as an arrow, up, and now it's almost at 12 o'clock in front of me, going straight up at an angle, not across the sky like a plane or a satellite or, something that's going, across the sky. This is going up. And by the time it ended, Peter, it was a pinprick of a light. It went from this huge ball, huge. I don't know. It's miles away, and I can see its shape and its physical part. So it's got to be, I don't know, 100 feet, 200 feet round, I'm guessing. And now it's up in the sky, and it's a pinprick of a light. And I'm following it in the night vision, and the frigging thing stops. And then it moves again for about 5 or 10 seconds, a little bit. It's moving really slowly now because it's far away. And then it stops again and then turns left 90 degrees and shoots off into space. Now, I'm telling you, this is me, Jimmy Church. You know me. We are friends. We have broke bread together, Peter. You know me, right? Okay. That now, when somebody like me, a friend of yours, tells you that, now there were hundreds of witnesses that were standing around me that all saw the same thing. Now, when I tell you something like that, what do you think? Now, I don't know if it's us or them. I don't know. I don't know if it's ET. I don't know if it's some crazy foreign technology. I don't know. But I do know this is something that we here on, the common man knows nothing about. We're not supposed to have that kind of technology. So, I don't know. I can only tell you what I saw. Now, isn't that interesting? I can't explain it, man. I just cannot. And you're a pragmatic guy. You're a black and white guy. So me as an eyewitness, and I tell you something like that, what goes through your mind?
I mean, we've talked to people like this. I've talked to people among our own particular circle. Our colleagues have also had experiences like this. I mean, I don't doubt it. I mean, how can I doubt it? Why when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, do I have to doubt every eyewitness, of which there are now millions on this planet?
Right.
Why would I doubt them? I don't doubt them. Just because I haven't seen it myself, I don't doubt them. And maybe I haven't seen it myself because, I'm from the Bronx. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If something landed in the Bronx, it'd be up on blocks in minutes, Hubcaps would have been stolen.
And that's the other fascinating thing about our mass sighting that we had out there at Contact in the Desert. There was, 100, 150 people on the cliff. But standing behind me, you've been to Contact in the Desert. There are thousands of people there.
Sure.
This was a mass sighting, and this was not, you have the Marine base there. You have 29 Palms. You have the city of Joshua Tree. You have the city of 29 Palms. It's a metropolitan area. It's not exactly downtown L.A., but it is certainly a city. They have a Walmart, right? So, and this, again, it wasn't over the Bronx like you're saying, but this was over Joshua Tree, and it was a mass sighting.
Right. No, I believe me. I believe it. I have no doubt that took place, that happened. from our point of view, what we want to know is what the hell was it, right? And what are the characteristics of it that we can start to analyze and to understand. We would need to take, eyewitness testimony from everybody, try to get a common picture of it. Maybe people saw it, but they saw different things when they saw it.
Oh,
Maybe they saw different colors. Maybe
right,
they know what I mean.
Right. And you know what else? This is the ace in the hole. There was a documentary film crew shooting with cameras. And they're assembling that footage now, too, as well. And it's just like, thank heaven. There was enough witnesses there and enough cell phones and enough videos, and it's been shot and stuff. But this was a crazy mass sighting. And Rita was there. And you know Rita, right?
Yep.
So we're driving away in the car, and we're not even talking. We're just like tripping out. And Rita's like, they're real. It was bizarre.
My question to you is, what was going through your mind?
I need
during that moment.
I need a Vicodin.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my heart was pounding out of my chest. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it didn't make any sense. And this is the thing. This is what's really trippy. When I hear the comments about this mass sighting, people, it was satellites. You guys didn't know what you were looking at. It was this. It was, you know what? The last time I checked, satellites aren't playing bumper pool every night. You just go outside and just see all of this action going on. No. That discussion needs to stop. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't anything that we are familiar with seeing. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a jet. It wasn't a rocket. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't a Roman candle. It was nothing that we are familiar with. This was simply, as I described it to you, a green chrome ball, like a Christmas ornament you would hang on your tree, right? And I could see the physical part of it. I could see all of that, and that's what it was, man. It just left. That's all it did, man. It just went up, left, and then literally turned left and left. It was bizarre.
So this is the thing, we in the official literature, in the official statements regarding UFOs, they're always trying to say that it's something else, right? They're always trying to say it's a satellite, or it was a meteor, or it's the planet Venus, or something like that. Now, I've been going through, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of these sightings since I started this project about 18 months ago. I've been looking at all of this. I've been looking at other people's interpretations of it, both from the official government military sources and from, respected people on the outside of that, people like Jacques Vallée, as an example, people like that who are doing this kind of research and looking at it. And, you have to start at some point to say, okay, forget it. We can't keep denigrating the ability of eyewitnesses to see what they're seeing, to say what they're seeing. I mean, you can say maybe somebody with limited education out in the woods someplace, make a big story that they were fooled. But you have to do that every single time for every single sighting. And we're talking about people with braid on their shoulders. We're talking about military people who've come away as witnesses to these sightings. We come away with, law enforcement people, with people who are trained observers.
Yeah,
people who know what these things look like. They're coming out and insisting, and then we try to ignore them and say, well, they must have been mistaken. At a certain point, you say, come on.
Yeah, exactly right. And let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Peter Levenda, and the show is called Levenda on UFOs. Now, hey, Peter, when we come back, I'm going to hit you with why the secrecy. I mean,
sure.
What's the need for all of this secrecy? Our guest tonight, Peter Levenda. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay right there.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Results may vary.
Hello, I'm Jerry Mathers. I was the beaver in Leave It to Beaver, and 20 years ago, I almost died from type 2 diabetes. When I was diagnosed with type 2, I was shocked. My blood sugar was through the roof. Now, the very same natural remedies I use to control my type 2 diabetes are available for you in a super easy program called the Diabetes Solution Kit, and I should know it works. I use the very same techniques to drop 40 pounds of fat, get my blood sugar under control, and watch my type 2 diabetes fade into thin air. If you have diabetes, I urge you to try this step-by-step plan. It has all the natural techniques I used, and it works a lot faster, too. I'm Jerry Mathers, and if I can do it, you can do it, too.
If you'd like to normalize your blood sugar and stop taking your diabetes medication completely with your doctor's approval, go to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com. Reverse your diabetes in as little as 30 days by going to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com now.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church. Follow me right now on Twitter. I want to hear from you at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ. Send me or some questions for Peter. All right, Peter. Now, look, I know that right now you're pretty close to the fire. In fact, you're so close, you've got to wear sunscreen. Right? Yep. But it's not a United States or an American phenomenon. It's a global thing. But certainly the government secrecy is probably more intense here than it is the rest of the world. It may not. But why the secrecy? Why the need for it? Is there one reason, or is it just too many to count?
Well, if we knew the reason for the secrecy, we would know the secret, right? But basically, it goes back to the time when this phenomenon began in earnest in 1947. It was the Cold War. In 1945, we had just dropped 2 atomic bombs. By 1946, we were wholesaling bringing Nazi scientists into the United States and trying to protect the atomic secrets to make sure that the Soviets wouldn't have them. We were suddenly very afraid of the Soviets, not suddenly, but for a long time, but it had blossomed by 1946 and in 1947. So when these craft were sighted, and I'm including Roswell, Maury Island, and everything else that's happened in, let's say, in the period from 1947 to 1957, give it that 10-year span, there was tremendous concern on the part of our national security people that this could be enemy aircraft. The initial feeling was not that this was extraterrestrial or out of space stuff. They were trying to protect not only their ignorance of where these craft came from. They could have been from the Soviet Union. It could have been Nazis who were set up someplace else in some other base, doing these flyovers for some reason. All of this was being considered. But it was also to protect their own black operations, right? Their own secret weapons development and all of this. They didn't know if there was going to be a conflict between people seeing quote-unquote flying saucers and people seeing actual secret aircraft, secret weapons that were being developed. It's hard to remember, unless you were there, and I was kind of there as a kid, that in the 1950s there was tremendous tension. There was this idea that at any moment the Soviet Union was going to bomb American cities. So I was one of those kids in school, who covered his neck with his hands and kissed his ass goodbye, right? It was the students had to go out and pretend there was an atomic bomb attack. And we went through this almost every week. We would hear the sirens, we would jump from our desks and go and hide. This was the atmosphere in which the UFO phenomenon was really taking off. It was mixed in with all of this paranoia and secrecy and fear, quite frankly, that our national security was not as airtight as we'd like it to be. And since we had seen what atomic weapons could do, we had to be very aware that other countries would have the same kinds of technology. Japan came very close to it. Germany came very close to it during the war. So it was possible that some other country somewhere had developed both the V1 and V2 technology and coupled that with atomic warheads. Those saucers could have been anything. And we knew the Horten brothers in Germany were looking at, flying wing designs, which were very similar to Kenneth Arnold's saucers that he saw that made the term flying saucer so famous. He was actually drawing not saucers, but something very similar in design to the Horten design.
Yes.
These Nazi, scientists, engineers who were developing new aircraft. So all of this was taking place. This was the atmosphere in which this was taking place. So it kind of gave secrecy, it became the culture that surrounded this idea of unidentified flying objects. So it began that way. And then later on, as our agencies and our military divisions and everything else evolved with their own secret weapons technology, their own black operations, their psychological warfare operations, that we began to think in terms that maybe this phenomenon was being used against us by the Soviets. Maybe the Soviets were trying to pretend that the UFOs were actually Soviet when they weren't, and vice versa. Pravda came out with a news article accusing the United States of having created the UFO phenomenon as a destabilization measure against the Soviet Union. I mean, all this stuff was going on. So that if you didn't have a need to know, and you could be at the highest levels of the military or our national security establishment, if you didn't have a need to know, this was so compartmentalized, so compartmented in terms of intelligence jargon that you would never know. So you could be somebody with a very high security clearance, and you still wouldn't have the secret as to what this was really all about. And I think the secret behind the secret is that nobody knows what the hell it's all about.
What about, okay, now the Cold War technically, ended.
Yeah.
And we have, three pretty large and powerful countries. I'm talking about the Soviet Union, China, and the United States. Yeah. I think every country in the world has experienced it, to some degree, and they have knowledge of it. But why the secrecy today? Or is China communicating with Russia backdoor about UFO technology, or the United States? Do you think that they're now sharing the knowledge of us not being alone? And that question of us being alone in the universe has truly been answered, and they're sharing that information.
Well, that's always the possibility. We don't know what the Soviets know. We don't know what the Chinese know. We've always gone on the assumption that any UFO worth its salt would land first in the United States, right, on the White House lawn and say, take me to your leader. This has been kind of a conceit we've had since the Cold War, when we were the superpower. We were the ones with the atomic weapons. But that doesn't mean that an alien civilization, if this is what we're talking about, that an alien race would look at the world the same way. They may have looked at the United States as, damn, those people are dangerous. You know, let's go somewhere else. I mean, we don't know what their reactions are. We don't know what their priorities would be. So it was always possible that there was contact, really tangible contact taking place in another country, right? So the official position of the military, as far as we can make out, and this is from conversations and it's from reading documents and everything else, was if this phenomenon does not pose a threat to the security of the United States, we can't really afford to look into it too much. There's just too many other real threats, tangible threats that we have to protect ourselves against. We're going to put this on a back burner someplace. We're going to have a group within the Air Force called Blue Book in a back room someplace at Wright-Patterson. Let those guys handle it for a while. Let those guys glean through it and see if there's anything there. But the emphasis is it a threat? Do these things pose a threat to the United States? If not, we can afford to ignore it. If there was contact with the Russians, if there was contact with the Chinese, this would suddenly elevate the whole thing to a different threat level, right? But even then, how are we going to find this out? Who in the Soviet Union would be cleared high enough that we would have contact with them and get the information out of them? How would human intelligence work in a situation like that if even within our own government we don't know who knows what? And we were told this by a very high-ranking official, political official, who said to us quite frankly and quite openly, if you don't know the right question to ask, you're not going to get the answer you're looking for.
Well,
you have to know the question. You have to know specifically what it is you're looking for, and you have to be as specific as possible so that the person being questioned can go to the right place at the right time, to the right file folder, and get the information that you need. Because there is no one, according to this official, there is no one big black box full of UFO files. The stuff's been disseminated across different levels of our society, military, industrial, political, whatever, the intelligence agencies. Everybody has a piece, right? So when they declassified files at CIA and at FBI, they didn't necessarily match each other. Everybody was doing their own thing. The military had its own files. They issued their report on Roswell, which everybody kind of laughed at, right? So all of this is going on in compartmented ways where there isn't one UFO czar within the government that has the access. This is what we've been made to feel from our investigations. They're not saying there is nothing to it. The people we've spoken with quite often are aware of the possibility that this exists. They're sympathetic to the idea that we've been visited, that this phenomenon is real. We just don't know where to go.
Well, and what's interesting by saying that, and that you haven't asked the right question, right? You need to ask the right question. But just by saying that, the entire situation could get put to bed. The reason why we question is because they have never stepped up to the podium and said, we're alone.
Right.
They've never said that. They've never said, look, that we've never made alien contact. The UFO phenomenon is just that. It's just a phenomenon that it is not extraterrestrial. It is not ET. We are alone in the universe. That is it. Now move on with your lives. They've never said that, and they can do that any day of the week.
No, they can't. They can't say it. In fact, look back at the very first official press conference on UFOs that was given in June of 1952. Washington, D.C. was getting these overflights, right? It created a tremendous stir. So General Stanford is in charge of this investigation. He goes out in front and he makes this presentation on UFOs. Go back and read that thing. It's a phenomenal document.
I have watched that so many times. It is one of the most telling. Just his face alone.
Yeah.
He is scared out of. I want to use another adjective to describe, but he is that scared. He has zero color in his face.
Yeah, and he's making reference to biblical sightings. This is in 1952. He's making reference to biblical sightings. This is before Zecharia Sitchin and all of that, right?
That's right.
He's making reference to the paranormal, to ESP. He's throwing everything into this bag. And he's basically not saying anything. You know, you come away from this thing, and the reporters are like, well, what did he just tell us? You know, at least they're not a threat to our security. That's about as far as he could go, making a definitive statement. But every time they ask him a question, he goes off on this wild tangent.
Right.
He's actually associating the phenomenon with biblical sightings. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. And so back to your point, by not answering the question, you know, stepping up to the podium, then therefore they are answering their own question that isn't being asked.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be, you know, esoteric here. I'm being very direct and to the point. By them not coming clean is telling us there's a reason why you're not coming clean. And that's it. We're going to write our own story.
Well, they know, when I say they, I mean the powers that be, the military, the government, whatever. They know we're going to write our own story anyway, right? They can pretty much figure out that we're going to spin all sorts of stories because we don't have anything to work with. And they're not going to contribute to this at all. They're going to step back from it and stay as removed from it as possible. In the beginning, in the 1950s, it was the Cold War. I think Stanford and other people were kind of worried that this may represent some kind of super weapon. If you read the reports out of Project Sign and Project Grudge, at a certain point they come to the conclusion where they say, well, you know, we don't think it's logical that a foreign power, like the Soviet Union in that case, which was the only foreign power they were worried about, would actually send aircraft into our airspace just to screw with us and go back, right? It didn't make any sense. You know, they would keep it secret until there was an attack, maybe, or they would fly them over Red Square during the, you know, May Day celebrations or something.
Right.
But they wouldn't send a flying saucer into the United States and crash it in Roswell. There was no point to it. But the implication behind that statement was that these are not man-made, right? They were accepting the fact that the craft that were being seen were not man-made. So either they were hallucinations, which was becoming harder and harder and less tenable of an explanation, or it represented a technology that was not from here, but they couldn't go out and say that. And there's a very good reason why they can't. And if you really think about it for a while, it'll become very clear. If the military or the government in general were to say there are beings from another planet or there's another race, extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial or whatever you want to call it, extraterrestrial biological entity, however you want to call it, that's flying around in our atmosphere, the government loses its authority as the authority. They are no longer the authority on this planet. They're no longer the authority for the United States. They are acknowledging that there's something they cannot handle, something they cannot control, beings that have technology superior to ours, if that's in case what it is, and they're helpless to do anything about it. It's far worse for them to come out and say that than it is to make up stories about weather balloons and, you know, Operation Mogul and stuff like that. How can they come out and say, we don't know? We can handle it, maybe, but they can't, because that means basically giving up their authority. It's going to hit all sorts of different levels of society if our leadership comes out and says, there are beings from another planet and they're visiting us and we can't do a damn thing about it.
Right. And has, to the best of your knowledge, has a head of state of any state, has a head of state ever come out and spoken to his constituents, right, his country, and said, okay, we lied? You know, about any subject. It could be about anything. Forget about ET. I'm just talking about in general. Has that ever happened?
No, you're not going to see that.
Right. So that it's certainly when we're dealing with the ET agenda, that would be the most extreme situation that they could put themselves in. So they can't say that they have been lying.
No. I think that politically, it's not just a political problem that they would lose their personal credibility or their party or their government agency or the military would lose credibility. All of society would start to fall apart.
Right.
In a case like that. So they can't. And so I feel for that situation. I understand that. So our focus, I believe, if I can represent the others on this with just by saying what I think it is, our focus is to try to make a space where people like that can discuss this openly, you know, without going to the extent of saying, oh my God, the aliens are coming. We have to take this seriously, and at the same time open a space where we can discuss this. And we feel that it's necessary to bring in people from various disciplines in order to understand the contours of the problem, to understand the contours of the phenomenon. If all you have are engineers who are brought up, in our engineering schools, who are looking at this phenomenon, they're going to say it's not possible.
Right.
Right? And they have said it's not possible. And if we just talk to physicists, if we just talk to astronomers, we're going to get a lot of the it's not possible. It will be for different reasons, but it'll always be it's not possible. And we feel that we've laid too much emphasis on those guys and those women to come up with these explanations. Let's talk to everybody. Let's talk to geneticists. Let's talk to linguists, to archaeologists, to anthropologists, to sociologists. Let's broaden this field so that everybody can have something to say. Everybody can bring something to the table and look at this soberly and seriously, because it is a phenomenon. It is real. There's no walking away from it. Every country on Earth, as far as we know, has had experiences, have had extraterrestrial sightings. They've had sightings of actual alien people or beings of some kind. They've especially had sightings of vehicles. They've taken photographs. They've taken film footage. We know it exists. It's something that we need to know, because an approach to this subject may actually open up areas of knowledge for us that we don't even know exist. This may actually help explain some of the mysteries of human existence itself. If we can just extend ourselves just a little bit to accept that this is a real phenomenon, and how do we explain it? I mean, it's a lot better than going back and trying to figure out, our basic psychology and what makes us tick and everything, because we're missing a piece. And this piece may be flying around us, trying to get our attention, or it may be, as Jacques Vallée has said, a kind of control mechanism. And if that's true, we need to know that as well, or at least as much of that as we can. And we're not going to get there unless we start by saying, okay, the phenomenon is real. Let's start from there. That's the premise. Not let's stop trying to prove it. And trying to prove it is an endless loop, and it's never going to get us anywhere.
It is an endless loop. And I'll give you an example. If I was in front of somebody from some physicist from DARPA, right? Somebody from Sandia, somebody from MIT, standing in front of me, and I ask them, what was it that I saw, right? I give them the description, and they come back, well, it was probably something, natural. It was, dude, what you need to come back at me with is, okay, so it was a green ball about yay big, and it shot out of the atmosphere. Okay, well, let's take a look at, they will never do that. They won't look, I doubt that they would, even if they saw it with their own two eyes.
No, it's a religious position, basically. It's an ideology.
It is. It is.
It doesn't exist. Therefore, what you saw is not there. It's so anti-scientific, that it's funny, because they start with the conclusion that whatever it is, it's not a flying saucer. It's nothing. It's got to be natural, or you're hallucinating. You're on drugs.
Right.
You had too much coffee, or whatever.
And they don't understand that I'm not that guy. That's not who they're talking to now. But
they're going to make that assumption anyway, because they can't explain it otherwise.
That's right. And that's all we need is for them to just spin it around and get to the other side of it and just look at it for what it is and try to figure it out. Or and this is the thing. This is what's really trippy about this. 29 Palms, a Marine training base with an airstrip, is sitting 20 miles away. Yep. And that they know exactly what that was, whether it was us or them. I'm talking about ET, whatever it was. But they tracked it. They saw it. They know. I'm telling you, they know exactly what that was. That's the trippy thing. And nobody is saying a thing about it.
They may have seen it just like you saw it. They may have caught it on radar. They may even have some chromatographic analysis of it. They may have had some kind of other analysis of it. But I submit to you that maybe they don't know what it is, and that's what's scaring them.
Yeah, that's a trippy thought.
That's the scarier part. And I think that there's, people who have been studying this thing for a long time, the more philosophically bented of our leadership, let's put it that way, those who are more sort of open-minded on this, who've been giving it a lot of thought, are worried in some cases, or at least they're entertaining the possibility that this is hostile, that this is ultimately hostile, and that, we don't know exactly how to handle it yet, and that maybe there are forces at work in our world that we don't really see, that we're not very sensitive to, that are manipulating things. Look at it this way. We're fish in an ocean. We're swimming in the ocean. We have no concept of dry land. We have no concept of life outside of the ocean. And if somebody dives into our ocean, they're an alien. They're there for a minute and they dive back out again. And some fish say, well, you didn't see it. Some fish say, yeah, we did see it. We have no context for what just happened, and we don't even have the environmental context for it. What if we're living and working in a kind of an ocean that these things are occasionally diving into, from another dimension next door, or another kind of an environment of which we are totally insensible. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities here, and it requires the application of some of our best minds, and it definitely requires that our country, this country, really starts investing in some of the STEM subjects in a big way. I'm talking science, technology, engineering, and math, because we're falling behind, and we're going to need this. We're going to need everything. We're going to need our cultural stuff as well, just as well. We're going to need our behavioral sciences just as well. We're going to need our humanities just as well. This is a subject that needs everybody's work, everybody's attention. We need to know what this is, and we need to develop a protocol for interpreting it and for understanding it and seeing how this phenomena fits, how the sightings fit within certain parameters so that we can go forward on this.
Man, how did you get so smart? Man, you mess with me, Peter. Now, check this out. This is the other fascinating angle on this mass sighting out of contact in the desert. 29 Palms is, that Marine training base, one of the biggest in the country, is sitting right, it's 20 miles away. And they didn't scramble anything. We saw sightings out there all night, and there were things moving across the valley. No jets were scrambled. No helicopters came into the valley. No searchlights were probing the skies. Nothing happened. It was just like they just let it go. That's pretty fascinating. And if it was threatening, do you think they would have scrambled something? I don't understand that. And what I saw take off out of the atmosphere, why didn't anything, chase that up or go and follow it?
Let me just ask you, has it ever worked in the past?
Yeah, exactly my point. That's that's what I'm trying to say. There was, I don't know how many tens of thousands of Marines and pilots and stuff are sitting out there, but they certainly did nothing. Let's take a break right here, Peter. When we come back, I'm going to hit you with the obvious. We've got some craziness going on in the election. We've got Hillary talking UFOs. We've got Bill Clinton going on TV shows, and Obama, and everybody seems to be talking UFOs. And why are they doing it during this election year? And for some reason, my audio is not. Come on, let's try this again. There we go. Peter Levenda is our guest. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, it is Levenda on UFOs. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Results may vary.
Hello, I'm Jerry Mathers. I was the beaver in Leave It to Beaver, and 20 years ago, I almost died from type 2 diabetes. When I was diagnosed with type 2, I was shocked. My blood sugar was through the roof. Now, the very same natural remedies I use to control my type 2 diabetes are available for you in a super easy program called the Diabetes Solution Kit. And I should know it works. I use the very same techniques to drop 40 pounds of fat, get my blood sugar under control, and watch my type 2 diabetes fade into thin air. If you have diabetes, I urge you to try this step-by-step plan. It has all the natural techniques I used, and it works a lot faster, too. I'm Jerry Mathers, and if I can do it, you can do it, too.
If you'd like to normalize your blood sugar and stop taking your diabetes medication completely with your doctor's approval, go to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com. Reverse your diabetes in as little as 30 days by going to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com now.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, the one and only Peter Bleepin Levenda. Levenda on UFOs. Now, before I get to the Hillary, Obama, Clinton-ish thing vibe that is going on right now, we're going to get to that. But I've got to ask you, Peter, the one thing that recurs constantly in UFO sightings, witnesses, investigations is men in black. Are they real?
You're an evil man, Jimmy.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
and proud of it. That's why we like you. The reason I'm laughing is because Jimmy and I had a slight conversation about this. I have gone on the record many times I've never seen a UFO. And which is why I think I'm kind of, one of the best people to actually investigate it, because I'm coming at it with a completely unformed opinion of it. But that being said, the Men in Black is a different story. And I do have an experience with that. And to this day, I can't figure it out. And I've talked it over with people on all different sides of various fences on this thing. And nobody can help me out on it. It was during the time we had just started the first Gulf War. So it was under George Bush Sr. That era, I was living in a small town in New England, living in a house on a small road not in the middle of a town or a city, really sort of off to the side. I had a very long driveway going up to the house. I had just returned from a shopping expedition. I had parked my car in the driveway. I was unpacking packages, and I look up to see an old model black Cadillac parked right, in front of my house, really, on the road. There's a driver has aimed a telephoto lens at me. So he's obviously taking my photograph. And that's freaking me out because I can't figure out why. So I put down the groceries that I'm holding. I get back into my car. I'm going to follow this car out and see who it is. The car takes off. I get into my car. I'm getting ready to pull out of my driveway. And another car pulls in right behind me, blocking me so I can't pull out. And it's one of those old wood-sided station wagons, right? And there are two women inside. I would say they were in late 20s, early 30s. Sort of Mansonoid looking, very sort of, blondish, sort of strawberry colored hair, sort of, very white skin, and wearing a cloth coat. The driver came out of the driver's side door, obviously. She's wearing this sort of weird, old-fashioned cloth coat. And the girl comes out of the other side, the passenger side, just stands next to the car, which is very odd because they ask me directions. So they're asking me, do you know where De Vilbis lives? The name is very clear, De Vilbis. Do you know where De Vilbis lives? And I'm really agitated by now because I want to follow the other car. And I say no, and they just sort of smile sweetly and say thank you, get back in the car. They pull out. And, of course, the other car is long gone. I have no idea who that car was. And it, as slow as I am, it took me a minute or two to put together the fact that these two cars were working together. Right. I just thought it was, an accident, a synchronicity, a coincidence. And obviously they pulled in just to make sure I couldn't follow the other car, which meant this was a 2-car operation, a 4-man operation, because there were 2 women in that follow car. There were 2 guys in the other car. So it was 2 men in that car and 2 women in the other car. 4 people, 2 cars. That's, for an intelligence operation, a little expensive to run that on somebody like me, right? Because I wasn't, plotting anything. I mean, I'm in a small town in the middle of nowhere, in the days when internet connection meant bulletin board system, right? Right. So it's BBS, there's no smartphones, there's nothing. It's not like I'm in contact with a terrorist cell somewhere. And I couldn't figure out what this was for. And it freaked me out.
What were you researching at the time?
At that point, I was writing a novel. So it wasn't like I was researching. I don't think so. Let me think for a second. It might have been Unholy Alliance as well.
Okay.
Unholy Alliance came out in 94. So I might have been researching it at about the time of that, of the first Gulf War. It's possible. But I was more involved with writing this particular novel, which has not yet been published, by the way. But I was involved in doing that, and the novel has to do with Vietnam. It has to do with psychological warfare operations and things like that. So there was some tangents, but nobody would know it because there was no way to tap into my desktop computer in those days, right? There was no internet connection, so that was not possible. Nobody would know what I was doing. So I was concerned about that. And I brought it up to a number of people, and people with intelligence backgrounds said, that doesn't seem likely. That's 2 cars, 4 people. That's like a major, surveillance operation.
Yeah, you were on the radar.
Well, it looks that way. And then 10 years later, I'm in Singapore. And I was based in Malaysia. I was doing a lot of business out of Kuala Lumpur. I was traveling extensively throughout the world. I mean, China, Russia, South America, everywhere, all through Europe, all through Asia. So, I was doing a lot of this. I was tired. I was coming back from one particular trip. I'm dragging myself through the airport at Changi Airport in Singapore. And as I'm dragging my ass through the airport, somebody taps me on the shoulder. And it's kind of odd. And I just turned around to look to see who tapped me on the shoulder, and it was one of the girls from the car.
Shut up, Peter.
I'm serious. And she smiles and she waves, and I turned to follow her to see what this is all about, And she disappears. I mean, she disappears in the crowd. And it wasn't that big a crowd, but she managed to disappear. And that is what nailed it for me. This was not an intelligence operation. This was something completely different, and I don't know what it was.
How do you know? Well, obviously you knew it was her, but how did you know it was her?
Oh, it was just that look of immediate recognition. She looked at me knowingly. I looked back at her and said, "Oh shit, this is who it is." Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I say it on the air?
Well, beep. Okay.
Beep. Okay. So it was that. I mean, that was my genuine reaction. Was exactly those two words. I was like, "What is this all about?" Now, one more thing I should plug into all of this: the name De Vilbus.
Right. I was going to go there. Okay, go ahead.
De Vilbus. I went back that day. I mean, immediately, and I went through phone books and everything else. There was nobody with that last name, or with that name at all. No company, no person, nothing in the entire state that I was living in. There was nothing. There was no De Vilbus. So I was starting to think to myself, where have I heard the name before? And I had heard the name before. A guy that I knew living in the same town used to work in Alabama at the NASA place in Alabama, right, for Wernher von Braun. But he was a techie guy. He wasn't one of the top scientists or anything. He was a guy who just worked, there in the operation in Huntsville. And we talked, in those days we chatted about various things. And at one point he knew that I was doing business overseas and putting together business deals here and there. And he said, you should check out this company in Ohio. They're doing some of the similar machinery that you're interested in. And it's called De Vilbus, exactly that name. A small company in Ohio making, some kind of machine. Actually, I forget what machine it was now. But it was a small company doing one particular machine. And it was called De Vilbus. And I had this sense that they just pulled that name out of my head,
Right.
The most unlikely name.
Right.
To be found in that state. They just picked out the name De Vilbus.
Why disclose to you by tapping you on the shoulder in Singapore, of all places, that to affirm that this actually did happen? Because that's what the tap on the shoulder did.
Sure. It was confirmation.
Right.
There is a possibility, although I was busy working and doing all this stuff overseas and I'm running around doing business, at the same time I was working on what would become Sinister Forces. So I was collecting information. I was doing some research in my spare time. Since I was traveling to foreign countries anyway for business, it gave me the opportunity to do more research here and there. Nothing too outrageous. I wasn't probing military secrets or anything like that. It was mostly on the weird religions and cultic stuff and everything that was going on. Possibly that raised a flag somehow, somewhere, and that's what caused it. It's a distinct but a distant possibility. I just think they wanted me to know that they're still on to me.
Yeah, no kidding. Did she look older, by the way?
No, not at all.
That's trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of confirms the whole Men in Black, Women in Black scenario, too, as well.
But you see, they would normally show up if you had seen something. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They're always connected in the popular imagination with a UFO sighting.
Sure.
And I've never seen a UFO.
Right.
Give me a break. Go chase somebody else.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, okay, so that was 1995. That was 2005 when she tapped you on the shoulder? 2004.
First Gulf War was not 1995. It was earlier than that.
92, right?
Yeah, so that would have been, maybe 2002, 2003, something like that, possibly.
Any other contacts since then?
No.
Interesting. Nothing. Okay, now let's move on. Man, that's a great story, by the way. That's creepy at about a 9. That's a 9.5. Yeah,
for sure.
That's good stuff. Okay, so now we have, and I'm directly referencing you to your circle of people that you're researching with right now. Okay, combine that with Hillary on Kimmel, Hillary on or Obama on Ellen, and all of this talk about disclosure and Area 51 and Hillary saying UAP, which was mind-blowing to all of us in ufology.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it was very cool. Now, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's definitely something going on. Let's backtrack just slightly. We had a president, we had Gerald Ford, who wanted to look into UFOs, and he was kind of shot down. We had Ronald Reagan, who claimed that he had, seen a UFO. We've had presidents on that side of the aisle, the Republican side, who've, talked about it. And then as we move towards the other side of the aisle, we have the same thing. So it's a bipartisan thing,
Right.
Witnessing UFOs or being interested in UFOs is not simply, the domain of, the people who believe in little green men and stuff, or whatever you want to call it. This is a different category. We have that famous photograph of Hillary Clinton coming back from a meeting with Lawrence Rockefeller, right? And she's holding that book on UFOs in her hand. Lawrence Rockefeller, very famous venture capitalist, of course. Everyone knows the name Rockefeller, had invested a lot of money in the search for UFOs and for paranormal research and that sort of thing. Not unusual, actually, in this country, as I pointed out with the 9. You had DuPont, you had Forbes, you had Astor, you had a lot of people with moneyed names and a lot of private money behind them going into the research on the paranormal and the UFOs. And somehow UFOs and the paranormal go together, which is another topic I think we can talk about as well, or if we have time. This is something that seems to be a recurrent pattern everywhere I look, is that people interested in UFOs are also interested in the paranormal. It seems to be a catch-all to an outsider, but once you get inside, there's a definite connection. Anyway, so you have Hillary meeting with Lawrence Rockefeller. You don't turn down a meeting with that guy. I mean, he's passed on, but you don't. In those days, he was a major force to be reckoned with. And then you have, of course, people in the Bill Clinton administration who wanted UFO documents to be revealed, who wanted the United States to come clean on it as far as they were able to. So you've had a motion within the governments since the 1970s. There's been some kind of movement about it. There was this tremendous flap over Roswell. We forced documents to be declassified on Roswell. Didn't do us a lot of good, but anyway, it got to a certain point where this became a thing. People had to talk about it. We had senators, we had congressmen who wanted to know the truth about UFOs. And now, in this election cycle, we're seeing a lot more of that talk. It's not as blatant as it could be. Otherwise, opposition candidates would be making fun of it left and right. But it's there. There is this idea that the time has come for the U.S., at least for the United States, to come clean. This idea you're talking about, why the secrecy, the Cold War is over. Well, things take a while to percolate. And, I think at this point in time, it's been, the wall came down in, 87, something like that. So it's been, quite a number of years now, 30 years. And I think at this point, it's becoming a little easier to talk about it. We have Leslie Kean and her book, all her people who came out and talked about UFOs from various governments around the world. They're making this a legitimate field of research. They're making this legitimate to talk about for the first time. And yes, UFO, to hear, UAP mentioned is just, mind-blowing. And it's the politically correct term. I'm still using UFO because, hell, I'm 100 years old.
Yeah.
But, there is an idea that, now we have to change our terminology, which is great if it gets us out of the little green men category. So we have Hillary, we have Obama mentioning UFOs, we have Bill Clinton talking about it. Hillary Clinton's campaign manager wrote a foreword to Leslie Kean's book. John Podesta, he wrote about the time has come for the secrecy to come down. That's not to mean that the U.S. government has this this enormous secret about UFOs they're going to reveal. I don't want anybody to think that is imminent, that this disclosure is imminent, but it's going to get us another step in that direction. Whatever can be declassified, if it can be declassified. And sometimes people ignore the president, We've seen that happen in the past. They're not supposed to. They ignored Truman when Truman said, no Nazis under Operation Paperclip, right? We don't want any war criminals coming into the country. The Pentagon basically ignored him and brought in whoever they wanted to bring in. Presidents do get dissed and they do get ignored. And you can create enough bureaucracy around something to make it almost impossible to get something done. But I think that with people like Hillary Clinton and people like that, with Podesta and everybody else, who are interested in this, interested at least in seeing some truth come out about what the government knows or doesn't know, I think we are going to see a little bit of extra progress made in this direction, and anything right now is welcome. We have Leslie Keene's operation. I think it's called UFO Data. She has a lot of luminaries, now involved in this, people who have credentials, who are willing to start talking about this in an open way. So I think that the climate is changing, and I think this is part of the climate change that we're going to see. And we're working very hard. I know my colleagues and I are working very hard to get as much information out as possible, no matter what it is. Wherever the chips fall is fine. We're just trying to get this thing out. We're trying to inspire people to take a new look at this phenomenon and to take a new approach to it. We want people in different walks of life, like I mentioned, to actually start looking at this phenomenon from their own perspective. What could it possibly mean? Is there a way for you as a linguist to approach it? I did a presentation at the last Contact in the Desert about communication, which is an essential main factor in this whole phenomenon. How are we communicating? How are they communicating, to us? How are we communicating to them? Is there communication at all taking place? Do they just show up and go away? But even showing up, making themselves known, whether it's a craft or whether it's an actual being of some kind, that is a kind of communication. That's a sending a signal, right? Sending an icon, sending an image. So that's the beginning of a kind of communication. NASA says communication is not possible with alien life. And they mustered all sorts of experts to prove it. And we have those reports. And they're interesting reading. There's experts in linguistics and archaeology and anthropology saying, no, it's not possible. An alien would have grown up on a different planet. They would evolve differently, have different sensory apparatus, different eyes, nose, whatever. They wouldn't have the same language. It would be impossible to communicate with a being from a different planet. That was their takeaway from all this. And that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's completely absurd.
I mean, I understand what they're saying. A being from Mars, okay, if you're growing up with a different atmosphere, different gravitational field, different level of gravity, different chemicals in the atmosphere, all these things make you a different being completely. And you would be hindered from communicating with somebody from a different environment completely. I understand that. The problem is we have thousands and thousands of contacts in which people have communicated with them, and they have communicated with us. Now, whether we believe them entirely and take them at face value, or we analyze all of these contacts to see what the common denominators are, no matter how you look at it, there is communication, right? And the one demographic that the scientists did not talk to when they developed this research for NASA were the contactees. If they had, they would have found some interesting bits of information that might have clarified this. The telepathic type of communication, communicating in pictures, for instance, and that sort of thing. Rudimentary forms of communication, possibly, but communication nonetheless. Plus, who's to say that the aliens that communicate with us came from our solar system? They could have come from an identically constructed planet from some other solar system, right?
Yeah,
in which case they could communicate.
Carbon is carbon, water is water, gravity is gravity. We're all made from the same things, unless they come from a universe that has a totally different chart of elements, right? Everything is completely foreign. No,
it can't be.
Right.
And we would have to assume that if it was a life force on another planet, that they had the genetic code that we have, that there was some similarity in our DNA. I get into this much later in the projects that we're working on, but let's look at it this way. Is the genetic code identical? Did it grow on this planet, spontaneously, or was it seeded here, as Francis Crick said?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The odds of it, the odds of it just magically coming together here, just magically, right? Yeah. is too extreme to think about.
Well, they said it's like, what have the scientists said? It's like saying you take a box, you throw a bunch of rocks in it, and you shake it, and a Cadillac drives out.
Yeah, right.
That's the level of complexity we're talking about here.
That's exactly right. Well, and there's the other thing that I find interesting about Obama and Hillary and certainly Podesta. You got to throw him into the mix too, and Bill coming out and talking about this when they don't have to.
Right.
They don't. And if it is something that A, doesn't exist, or B, does exist, but it's so uber secret that they don't even know about it, then what are you doing talking about it? Everything is premeditated when you're going on a talk show like that. The subject matter, the questions have been worked out months in advance. And this was planned with forethought, with malice.
It's not like there's a UFO lobby out there, right, forcing them to make this decision. There isn't.
No.
I mean, it would be nice if there was.
Right.
But there isn't. So there's nobody in Washington pressing anybody for disclosure, right? So this is all spontaneous. This is all on their own deciding, okay, it's time.
Yeah, they weren't caving into Leslie Kean or Stephen Bassett.
No.
And, that's it. We got to go on Kimmel and talk about this tonight. This Bassett guy.
Yeah, right.
This Bassett guy is just too much. We love Stephen, but you understand what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
sure.
They haven't caved in to anybody. But why do it? I mean, just why do it? And I did postulate that maybe, just maybe, it was for the UFO vote. I swear. Enough of us, the numbers are so great that just maybe they needed to tip the scales in the primaries, right? And
Well, yeah, it's a possibility. But for some reason, it's been so consistent.
It's a real possibility. I could see Podesta sitting at the table going, hey, Hillary, check this out. We can scrape together an extra $40 million into the till. Just mention UAP when you go on Kimmel. I'm just saying that is a real. I mean, where they need more Mexican votes. They need more women votes. They need more men. They need more college. They need more. They need the young. They need the old. They need it all. Right.
Right.
But what about the UFO vote? Oh, wait a minute.
The one thing that may mitigate against that a little bit is the fact that I think a lot of your listeners are aware that when John Podesta, for instance, worked in the Clinton White House, he was so well known as a devotee of the X-Files and being interested in ufology that they actually threw a birthday party for him at one point with an X-Files theme.
Yes, I heard about that. Yes.
So I mean, this is something that goes back to the Clinton administration. We're talking about the 90s, where this was a already at that time it was an interest, and I think it's flowering at this point. I think the interest was there since the beginning. I don't think it's something that they planned on, because that was not a secret necessarily, but nobody talked about it in those days.
Well, hypothetically, okay, hypothetically, we got 1 minute, so I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer this. You don't have to, expand. But hypothetically, you got John Podesta and Hillary sitting in front of you, and you have one crack at a question to the two of them. What would it be?
Wow. You have me on the spot here because I can think of about 10.
Yeah, but
I
it's
gotta
the
pick a
two.
good one.
It's the two of them together.
Right.
One crack.
Yeah. What do you know?
Ah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
If I had an expectation of getting an answer, right?
Right.
That's the expectation I'm thinking.
Right.
I would probably word it a lot differently in the expectation that I wouldn't get an answer.
I think I would go maybe Rockefeller. What did Rockefeller say?
Yeah.
Did the Illuminati?
Yeah.
Do they have contact? Let's take a break right there. When we come back, we've got to go to world events. I want to pick Peter's brain about ISIS, Turkey, and the New World Order. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Levenda on UFOs. I'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store. Would you like freedom from health insurance? You're not alone. Whether you're self-employed, a small business owner, or an individual who purchases health care for yourself and your family, Liberty Health Share could be the answer. Liberty Health Share has united a community of like-minded people that actually share health care costs. And Liberty Health Share members are exempt from IRS penalties associated with the Affordable Care Act. Imagine freedom from insurance. You choose your own doctor and hospital. Your medical provider simply submits your bills to Liberty Health Share for processing. Why wait? You do have choices. Together we're changing healthcare for good. Find out more and get a free monthly estimate right now. For a limited time, use promo code TALK to save $50 when you enroll. Go to libertyhealthshare.com/option. That's libertyhealthshare.com/options.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood. Not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Peter Levenda. Levenda on UFOs. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You know, one of the great things about Peter is that he not only uncovers and connects the dots, but who is running the world and how this nasty cesspool of elite control has been assembled over the last 100 years, and there's nobody else that has put it together like Peter has, and I really mean that, Peter. But today, the world is in flux, and I mean today, if we just look at, if we were having this conversation last month, Peter, I'd be saying the world is tripping out right now. It's out of control, and here we are a month later, and who would have thought we would have had like Brexit? Yep. That we would have had Orlando go down, and this horrific situation that just went down in Istanbul, ISIS and Syria, and what is going on with the threat of Iran and Iraq, and that craziness that has been that has been a fine stew cooking, for 25, almost 30 years now, right? It is really getting to be a perfection of craziness. That stew is getting really tasty. and I really mean that. I mean, so, and now today, I said this. I know that we're tripping about this ISIS, radical fundamentalism, Muslim terrorism situation in our own country and our own borders, and the threat of the West and Paris and things that have gone down. Yes, I get that. I do understand that. But honestly, it feels like it has developed into, over the last, and this has been going on for a long time, it's a Muslim on Muslim thing. What happened today, that wasn't London Heathrow, right? That was in Turkey. That was Istanbul. They're killing Muslims, right? Yeah. That's what those bombs, and Pakistan and Egypt and Afghanistan and the craziness that is going on over there, these terrorist acts, they're not killing a whole lot of Westerners. If that's their intention, they're really, really bad at their job. Yeah. But it seems to be a Muslim on Muslim thing. Has the New World Order lost control of their agenda? It seems like things are out of control. It's not in control. Brexit was not in control.
No, Brexit took everybody by surprise. It took the smart money by surprise.
Right.
Billions were lost, trillions were lost because of Brexit. Of course, a lot of that's going to be made up again. It's paper, money. It's not to be taken that seriously. I mean, the U.S. stock market slipped by 600 points, and then they came back and they rallied today. I mean, it's a game that's being played on a massive stage.
Yes, yes,
with
definitely.
So many different moving parts, it's really hard to get a picture of it unless you stand really, really far back. But you're right. Brexit, took everybody by surprise. I can't believe that was a deliberate, design by any of the powers that be, in which case, as you say, they're not really doing their job. As far as the terrorism thing is concerned, yeah, this is the thing that it's hard for us in the West to understand, really, and that is that the violence is Muslim on Muslim. I mean, it's been that way in Iraq and Syria, throughout the Levant, throughout that region. It's been Muslim on Muslim violence. In Libya, in Egypt, it's Muslims killing Muslims. This is not, the Muslim against the West is kind of a meme. It's kind of a justification for a lot of the stuff they want to do to each other. So they categorize their particular enemy as being pro-Western or being decadent or not being Muslim enough, and then they kill them. So this is really an internecine tribal conflict that's being played out, that's been played out not just for the last 25, 30 years, it's been played out since the time of World War I.
Right.
We're still living in World War I. This is what most people don't understand, and I know it's controversial for me to say this, but World War I hasn't stopped yet. World War II was not World War II. It was a continuation of World War I.
That's right.
The conflicts kept on going and going and going. The problems we have in the Middle East today go back to World War I. The problems we have in the Balkans, in the former Yugoslavia, goes back to World War I. The North Africa, the same thing. Even the problems in Asia go back to World War I. World War I was a major shakeup of the colonial powers, who were then desperately trying to hold on to what influence they could, and they just rewrote the maps, and especially in the Middle East. The West believed that Muslims were this monolithic group of people. They were marching in lockstep. They all believed the same thing, spoke the same language, had the same enemies, and that is most decidedly not so. The Middle East is a hodgepodge of all kinds of conflicting tribal interests and histories going back 1,000 years, hatreds and vendettas and everything else. And sometimes they flower into groups like an Al-Qaeda or like an ISIS or something like that, or worse. There's Lashkar-e-Taiba, there's Jemaah Islamiyah in Asia. I can go on with lists of names, Al-Nusra, et cetera, et cetera. You've got all these groups with their own agendas. Virtually none of it has to do with religion except as an excuse to do what it is they want to do. You know, it's an excuse. It facilitates what they want to do, and we helped to create this concept. We unified the Muslim world, at least in the Middle East and Central Asia. We did it deliberately in order to fight our enemies. At first, the Germans did it in World War I.
British did it.
The British did it.
Yep.
And then we did it in the 1950s.
Right.
We deliberately went out there and said, let's get all the Muslims united together to fight the Soviet Union. That sounds like a good idea.
Right.
These were people who hated each other. You know, people from Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan hated each other. The Tajiks didn't like either one of them. You know, let's get all these guys together. Let's say that, convince them they have common ground. Convince them they have this common religion. The Soviet Union's an atheist country. Convince them to go and fight, you know, together, not each other. Thanks. That worked out really well. You know, let's give a bunch of arms to the people in Afghanistan to fight the Soviet Union. Let's flood the place with Stinger missiles and Laws rockets and shoulder-fired missiles and everything else they need. You know, let's do all of this because we have the Soviet Union. Let's act as if these people are pawns in a game that we're playing. This was the great game, and we had all the money and we had all the guns, and we figure we're going to win the game. We're going to move these pawns around.
Do we actually think, and I'm sure that these meetings happened at the CIA, that they actually thought that they would be our bro friends for life?
Yeah, actually.
Seriously, yeah.
Well, I want to give one guy credit, and it's the only time I'm ever going to give this guy credit. It's Alan Dulles.
Oh, God, okay.
Yeah, really.
All right.
I have to find something nice to say about Alan Dulles. No, I don't. But anyway, this is it. There was a meeting in the Oval Office with President Eisenhower and Alan Dulles. I have the transcript. You can find it online. And Eisenhower at one point, you know, concerned about the Soviet Union, asks his advisors, including Dulles, why don't we convince the Muslims to go on a holy war together against the Soviet Union? Wouldn't that be a great idea? And Dulles sits there and says, but what if they turn on us? And Eisenhower has no answer for that, but he's already married to this idea.
Right.
That it would be great to have the Muslims get together and have a holy war. And so he invites the Muslim Brotherhood leaders to the United States. There's photographs of Eisenhower with one of the major leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood then. This whole thing started as an anti-Soviet thing. Like so many of our problems started this way. We brought in the Nazi, you know, spies and the Nazi scientists, and all these war criminals, basically, to work with us because we were afraid of the Soviet Union. You know, we then got the Muslims together as a bloc because we were afraid of the Soviet Union. We did so many things because we were afraid of the Soviet Union that later came to bite us on the rear end.
What ultimately is there an end game for us in that? Do we honestly, which sounds like a bad idea, but do we honestly just pull out and let them fight it out amongst themselves? Do we do that, or are we so entrenched now and quite frankly responsible for a lot of the mess that's out there? I mean, we've invaded Iraq twice now. I mean, and bombed them into, you know, I don't know, the 1800s, you know, yeah. Literally. And so are we morally obligated to stick this thing out? I mean, what do we do?
Well, there's a couple of answers to that. And it's a question that's come up a lot, you know. Walking away completely from the situation is one option. The problem with that is it would lead to a humanitarian crisis, the likes of which I think the world has never seen. I mean, the slaughter that's going on right now would just increase exponentially. You would have some of the worst people in the world in charge of the oil, in charge of other resources, and in charge of whole countries. This may not be such a good idea to walk away and leave it. We created this mess, and for us to walk away, we didn't create it completely. We contributed to the mess. Let's put it this way. There was a mess enough there to go around before we got involved, but it was there. I mean, Germany instigated this thing in World War I. I'm sorry to say, but they did. They came up with this idea of global jihad. It had not really existed that way before, but they went to the Ottoman Empire and they said, you know, join us, the Turks. Since we're talking about Istanbul, It was a Turkish-German alliance against Russia, against France and England. And let's have all the Arabs and all the Muslims rise up around the world and throw off the yoke of the oppressor, right? So they thought that was a good idea. It didn't work. And it didn't work for the very reasons why none of our strategies have worked so far. And that is because we constantly underestimate what's going on in that region. We really don't understand it. We thought this was going to work, that the Turks were going to have all the Muslims rise up and kill all of the foreigners. And it didn't happen that way because the Arab tribes themselves were so divided. They hated each other, and they all hated the Turks. So even though somebody issued a religious command from the caliphate, right, from the Ottoman Empire, from the Ottoman Caliphate, and said, you must rise up and kill the infidel, they didn't. Instead, they cut deals. This is the Muslim idea. This is what we're so brainwashed into thinking that Muslims are sort of marching in lockstep and they're fanatics. Some of them are, of course there are. There's fanatics everywhere, but in that part of the world, there's another factor you have to think of, and that is tribal animosities and hatreds, linguistic differences. You have a sectarian violence that goes back a long time. You have the Alawis in Syria. You have Shiites and Sunnis. You have the Druze militia. You have Yazidis and Kurds. All these people hate each other. They're fighting each other. What possible value is it for us to go in there and create a unified operation? And it's just not.
And this is what's funny. And hindsight's a bitch. Okay, it just is. But it's always correct. And in this instance, Gaddafi had Libya dialed. Yep. Saddam had Iraq dialed. Assad had Syria dialed. Right?
Yep.
And maybe they were all bad guys, but there isn't a world leader that isn't. Okay? That's just the way that it is. And if we hadn't have gone in and messed around, everything in its own weird way, nature works itself out. You do have the culling of the herds, so to speak. And I know that's a dark way to look at it. But honestly, Gaddafi had Libya dialed. There wasn't any issue. There wasn't, and I said this today, and I'll give you a good example. Iran. Now, we only know what we're told about Iran. I haven't been there. I don't know. I haven't shopped in downtown Tehran. I haven't meddled around and hung out. But I'll say this. You don't hear about ISIS bombings in Tehran, okay? No. And right now, it's in its own weird fundamentalist way. It's a safe place to be, right?
Sure.
Just like it was in Iraq before, and just like it was in Syria before we decided to overthrow Assad for whatever reasons. We went in and threw Gaddafi out, not because he was a bad guy, but because he was about to go against the petrodollar and wanted to go into his old gold standard in Africa. That's why we threw him out. It wasn't
there's a lot worse people in the world. You're absolutely right. All of this is, we overthrew Saddam Hussein. I don't understand why. He was an evil person. There's no doubt about that he was evil. There's no doubt that Gaddafi was a psychotic megalomaniac. All of that's true. But we had worse problems. We had problems in Darfur. We had genocide taking place on a massive scale down there. We didn't do anything about that.
That's right.
Because they had nothing to offer us. They had no natural resources that we could exploit. And we got burned in Somalia, as everybody remembers, and Black Hawk Down and all of that. So we're nervous about all these things, and yet we still feel we can solve problems by sending in the troops. But this is the point that we're at now. We can make a difference there, but we have to have a really firm, unshakable policy where that part of the world is concerned. And we have to have no illusions about it. We have to understand there's no good guys and there's no bad guys out there in the Middle East. There just aren't. These are all people fighting each other's, groups for whatever reasons they have. They have agendas of their own. Everybody has an agenda out there. We're going to have to be very pragmatic. We're going to have to understand that the people we make a deal with today can betray us tomorrow. And we can't take it personally. I know it's a really weird thing to say, but that's the only way to deal with this, because there's too much saber rattling on in Washington when we have to defend this group against that group all the time. That's the way it has to work. And then we put all of our money on one leader and then find out he's corrupt You know, he's double dealing. He's dealing with other people. He's having his enemies slaughtered. It's, you know, the man who would be kinged, right? If you remember that book and that film,
yeah,
is Michael Caine and Omar and Sean Connery going out into, you know, Kafiristan, which is where? It's in Afghanistan on the border of Pakistan. You know, it's a place, the last place in Afghanistan that was actually converted to Islam, and that didn't happen until about 100 years ago. They held out. And that's why it was called Kafiristan. They were kafirs. They were infidels, right? I mean, they went through in that particular novel and movie and everything else, and they went tribe by tribe, you know, conquering this tribe and then using that tribe to conquer the next tribe and so on and so forth. That's pretty much what you'd have to do out there. I mean, very simplistically, but that's pretty much what you would have to do. There are no good guys and bad guys out there. You're not going to find ideological purity in that part of the world. You know, you're just not. So to try to identify one group as being the best over the others, that's not going to work. You may want to try to defend, you know, the least violent against the most violent, you know, the least, you know, savage against the most savage, the least, you know, homicidal against the most homicidal. But we make a lot of noise about ISIS committing beheadings, you know, and filming these beheadings and all of this. That's the standard execution in Saudi Arabia. You know, that's what's been done for so long in Saudi Arabia. That is the standard method of execution of our ally in the region. You know, and until just recently, that's how they committed executions in France with the guillotine. You know, it's horrible, obviously. Nobody wants to see that. It's disgusting. But we have to look at it. We have to hold it back a little bit and look at this and say, okay, what's really happening here? What's really going on? You know, ISIS is manipulating us. They're manipulating the situation as much as they can through social media, through very sophisticated film work and everything else. This is psychological warfare. This is a psychological warfare operation that's being conducted. We have to look at it from that point of view, and we have to fight fire with fire. We can go into that region militarily if we do it extremely pragmatically and cold as ice. If we say we go in, we're going to defend this group against that group, and that's all there is to it. That's what's going to happen. No matter what anybody else says, no matter how we're criticized, oh, that guy's evil and this guy's evil, guess what? They all have baggage. You know, we're not going to find any leader out there who's going to be pristine. If he was, he'd be dead by now.
Do you think that our need, and this is a black and white issue, literally, do you think that our need for oil, which has been diminished so much, you know, we've got so much oil in this country now that it's you know, water costs more than oil does, right?
Yep.
And so when we're in a situation like this, that we don't have the need to press anymore there, that that area isn't as important to us as it used to be. Certainly, you know, in 1992, it was a different situation than it is today.
Sure. It's obviously a factor, or else we would be in there with boots on the ground in a big way if oil was still that necessary to our self-interest.
Right.
Sure. But the fact that oil, I mean, that was the whole point. That was the whole point of the administration saying, you know, we want to be self-sufficient so we don't have to deal with these people anymore. And it's working, right? I mean, it's actually working. ISIS is selling oil in the black market for whatever they can get, you know, to finance their operations. There have been bombings of ISIS oil fields. You know, nobody's too upset about that because there's kind of a glut on the market. And it's not just in the U.S. There's kind of a glut everywhere except maybe China, which is still desperate for oil. But we have a situation that suddenly is changing so much, and we're not, you know, we have to run to catch up with it, whether it's Brexit happening or whether it's the rise of more terrorist groups around the world or whatever it is, energy dependency, all these things are changing right now. And we need policies that stay in step with that, and which can exploit that for our benefit and for the benefit of the world in general, quite frankly, because whether we like it or not, the world still looks to the United States. If we sneeze, everybody catches a cold. And this is something that we have to realize. We do still have that influence, regardless of what some people say. I've lived a lot overseas, you know, I mean, I've traveled a lot overseas and lived abroad for years. I know that there's mixed feelings about the United States for things that it's done here and there, but it's still looked up to. It's still like, what's the U.S. going to do? It's like the first question anybody has. They want to know what we're going to do, how we're going to handle these things. And people still want to come here because of our system of government and because of the things we stand for. So we've got to really stand up for that. We've got to really realize, we have to stop thinking internally so much and thinking about ourselves from, within our own borders. We have to really think about who we really are worldwide, because this is a global community we're part of. And we can have tremendous effect if we only knew how to do it. And we're not, we're still using caveman technology, caveman ideas, rather, caveman philosophies with the modern technology we have at our disposal. Our reaction to threats is to bomb something. That's fine. It works occasionally, but it's a caveman approach. We're capable of so much more, of so much better than that. I don't know why, at this point in our development, we don't do what we used to do during World War II. We had an intractable enemy in World War II, especially in Nazi Germany, Japan also, but there was a ton of, movies that we made, to bolster morale and to create a kind of propaganda, to get us into the war and to stay in the war and to win the war. Now we have so much more technology at our disposal because of social media, and we have Hollywood, which is so much more powerful. We can change some of this narrative, about the United States and, and cultural domination and all this other stuff that we're being accused of. We have the abilities to change that conversation, to change the narrative ourselves, if we only had the imagination and the willpower to do it.
Yeah, and I don't understand, well, I'm starting to, I should say, but when we look at Syria and Iraq and the people that live there, just the families, the children, the husbands, the wives, we go in and we literally bomb the crap out of the country twice. I mean, just literally level it. And then we come in, flags waving, infrastructure, Halliburton, every, engineering company, we're throwing everything at it. We're going to rebuild everything, rebuild your roads, your schools, your hospitals, your electricity, your water. We're going to get it all back to where it was before. And all of that is stopped. The importance is stopped. The focus is off. And those people are looking around going, you know what? What the hell's going on here? And the truth is, the answer is, well, you know what? You're not that important anymore. The oil isn't that big of a deal, and we can actually get along without you guys. Otherwise, it would be the exact opposite. And I feel really bad. Now, if I feel for them, but if we pulled out right now, then they're really going to say, look, you put us here, and now you're just going to leave us here like this. And so what do we, it's such a revolving door. It's just amazing to me. And that's the reality. That's the reality that I see today. Now we can't. We have a moral obligation there, but we don't have the profit to have that moral obligation. And it really sucks, man.
There's a conflict between our principles and our economics.
Yes.
And economics always wins. And it's winning over our principles. And this is a very dangerous place to be. We have to stand for something in the rest of the world, and we do. We run all sorts of humanitarian aid in places. We help countries. We help people individually. A lot of it's not really known. It's not really talked about very much. We're not, big on waving the flag that way. But we have to do more. When we do all this humanitarian stuff on the one hand, and then we bomb the living daylights out of a country over and over again and walk away, well, all the good stuff we've done has sort of faded into the background. It's no longer relevant. And this is the problem that we face. We have to be principled about our involvements overseas, and we have to be consistent about it. It's the lack of consistency which is scaring everybody overseas.
Peter, I want to thank you. Now, really quick before I have to let you go, when are you coming forward with this new research? How long are you going to make us wait?
Well, the first installment of this research should be dropping any time now. I mean, in the next couple of months, I think. I will let you know as soon as it's ready to go. And you'll see the first book. There's several books that I'm working on that are part of this major project. So the first one should be appearing sometime in the next couple of months. I don't really have a date yet.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You are the very best. Peter Levenda, everybody. Peter, be safe out there.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you. Peter Levenda. I got to get out of here, hit this break. That was a show right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Peter Levenda, one of the absolute very, very best. And you know what's funny? And I know he's probably still listening to me right now. I know things, but I can't talk. I know things. Peter is going to blow minds here in a couple of months. Thank you so much, Peter. Behave. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. Hey, I'm going to open up the phone lines. 323-825-5045. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl, Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized wave ventilation unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave ventilation requires no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance wave ventilation unit. Call 888-618-WAVE, 888-618-WAVE, or visit mydryhome.com. mydryhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm tweeting. Welcome back. I am tweeting in real time. Look, see that? Did you see that? 323-825-5045. I'll open up the phone lines. Why not? 323-825-5045. What'd you think about that? That was a great conversation. And let's get back to the UFO issue. Let's stay right there. There, in Peter's research, and I'm kind of repeating a little bit of the interview, but you have to understand, Peter was looking into a lot of different areas other than UFOs. So he's looking into the FBI and a couple of key names that keep popping up throughout history, and he's doing that. And JFK, and he's looking into Operation Paperclip and the Third Reich and so forth. You know, he's looking, and these same names keep popping up. And as he's and he backs over the UFO issue. going back to Maury Island. And Maury Island, let's not forget, what's important about Maury Island is not only was it one of the first cases that the FBI was on, but it was also the first UFO deaths. Yeah. And Fred Krisman and Guy Bannister and the other stuff that was going on around the country all tied into his backyard back in the Bronx. But it was the UFO issue. So he became a backdoor UFO researcher because he was doing everything else. And so when you do that kind of stuff and you're connecting the dots and you're looking at the names and especially back then where, you know, he's got a Rolodex, he's got index cards, he's got notepads, and he's got the wall with thumbtacks in it, and he's putting all of this stuff together and connecting the dots. Everything kept coming back to these UFO cases and paranormal and the Nine and the richest families in the industrialized world. And these names keep coming up and coming up and coming up and tying back to Hoover and tying back to JFK and Werner von Braun and the FBI and ufology. It was nuts. That's why when Peter Levenda speaks about this, you need to listen. It's crazy research, and it's fascinating. Now, I do this every time he's on the show. If you haven't done it, go and look up the video, the presentation in Amsterdam that Peter and I were referencing tonight with the pointy hats. It's called Peter Levenda and the Secret Space Program, and it was done in Amsterdam. Go and watch that presentation. Okay? And then what you can do as you watch that, take your notes, write the names down, go watch JFK, Oliver Stone. You've got to throw that into the mix and check out Peter's research. So when he speaks about ISIS today and the Third Reich and the Grand Mufta and how all of that was put together not only by the Germans originally and the British, who drew up almost all of the borders there, and then the United States and what is going down there today, it is crazy how this is all put together. It's amazing, fascinating research. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. You're live. 3, 2, 1. See, there you go. See, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. 323-825-5045. Oh man. So, back to Peter. The research that he is doing today, when I say I know things, I know things. And the people that he is talking to today, my mind is blown. I am extremely jealous that he is in the position to ask the questions and do the research that he is with the people that he's working with right now. But what is about to come forward, and I'm not saying it's disclosure, but there is something going on right now, and I cannot wait. And he is certainly the man for the job. There's some big things about to pop. Oh, man. When I was talking earlier, I got to back this thing up here. I was talking earlier that I've seen some pictures, and he floats me this picture, and I'm looking, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Really? Really? Oh, man. All right. Let's see. Where am I at here? Okay. This just came out, by the way, and this has everything to do with Brexit and other things that have happened in the last week. But even though I don't talk politics, I will talk the conspiracy of politics all day long. And support for Donald Trump has plunged. It's plunged. He has alienated fellow Republicans, large majorities of voters all over in the course of a month of self-inflicted wounds. He's done it to himself. And it's propelled Hillary to a double-digit lead nationally right now. Just released 51 to 39%. Now, 4 polls have popped in the last 24 hours. All of them are showing these huge leads. 2 of them are double digits right now. And the poll question that all of the polls have asked is this: if the presidential election were being held today and the candidates were Hillary and Donald, for whom would you vote? Now, what's curious here is how did the elitists of the Republican Party and the Republicans across the United States, how did they lose control? How did they get here? Somebody is steering the ship. Think about what I am saying, and I'm talking about the big money. I'm talking about the lobbyists. I'm talking about Washington, D.C. I'm talking about the banking system. I'm talking about mortgages and the Federal Reserve and the money system around the world. And how did this steer in this direction? And I'm going to tell you right now, I had told you this a year ago, that this is where we would be today. It is really funny how it has played out that way. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not suggesting any of that. I'm not suggesting inside information. I just looked at who was running, how, what, and where, and why. And here we are today. It's unbelievable. And I don't see it going. And I'm not Hillary. I'm not Democrat. I'm not red. I'm not blue. I just enjoy a good conspiracy. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hi, Jimmy. R.J. Cole from the Arctic.
Oh, my goodness. Randy, how are you, man? It's been
pretty good.
It's been
long time.
A year at least. How are you?
Been pretty good. Still working.
You know, I've talked about you a couple times on the show over the last couple of weeks. Have you been listening?
No, actually, tonight's the first night I caught it in quite a while because my schedule. But tonight's show, you knocked it out of the park. That guy is smart.
Oh, man. Peter Levenda's the best, man. He's the absolute best. So, Randy, you know, for the audience that has never heard Randy's voice, Randy's been with us since day one. And I've told Randy's story on the air a couple of times. I've never said Randy by name, and what the story was, you got to go and figure that out. That's his private business. But Randy, it's good to hear your voice. What have you been up to?
Oh, just working, Jimmy. In the oil industry, you never know what's going to happen up here. So it's been interesting. Let's put it that way.
And in what regard? I mean, obviously, I talk about oil on this show so much. It's such a fascinating thing, and it's weird because when I say it's lost its luster, you know, the value of it has gone down, and we import less and less and less, and the offshore oil rigs that are getting turned on and turned off, and companies that are going bankrupt and restarting. I mean, it's a crazy industry to be in today. On one hand, it's very, very profitable because of the exploratory stuff that's going on and how we're uncovering more and more here. But on the same token, it's there's too much oil and there's not as much profit, and it's almost harder to get a job in certain sectors. How goes it for you? Am I wrong in saying that? It's weird. It's such a
You're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. Especially up in Alaska, it's had a huge effect. Jobs are just flying out the window. You know, since I'm in my position's fairly secure because of what I do. And but I'm watching places up here turn into ghost towns. It's just bizarre.
And are there other towns up there that are flourishing at the same time?
I think the whole state of Alaska is kind of in trouble, to be honest with you. If it's flourishing, I don't know what it would be. You know, this area up here in Prudhoe Bay used to be one of the number one tour spots for like Holland America, Princess Cruise Lines.
That's right.
And we had literally thousands of people come up here every year to watch the birds in the summertime and just see what's going on. But now we're down to, I don't know, several hundred maybe. But literally it has decreased. Princess doesn't come up here anymore, neither does Holland America. It's all changing. It's just changing.
Is there now, and I've also heard, like everybody else, this is the media, so, I don't know what to believe, but you live up there. the polar bears starving for food. There's less of this. There's less of that. The ice, their normal hunting grounds and the wildlife in general isn't what it used to be, and the stability on the nature side of things is starting to slip away from us. Is this reality for Alaska?
Every time I see pictures of the polar bear starving posted, and it's used as a, bandwagon for environmentalists and stuff. I'm not saying there's not climate change, because I think it's obvious that there is. Not saying that man is the problem with that. I think it's just going through cycles. But it's funny because up here where we're at, I can tell you the polar bear population has grown, and they're very healthy bears. And when they show pictures of these bears that are down to skin and bones, that's an old bear or it is suffering from some type of disease. And that's, that does happen. And there was one that was kind of funny that I saw, I guess it was last year, but they made a big deal out of it. I can't remember which group it was, but they put out the story that, things are so desperate for the polar bears that they're actually eating baby polar bears.
Yes, I saw that. I did.
Yeah. And that actually happens because that's what the male, dominant male has always done. It doesn't want to have to fight for food, so it will seek out the dens and it will eat, the babies, the cubs. It does. That's what it does. And they made it out like that was something new. It's not. That's the way it's always been.
So are you saying up in Alaska, you guys, when you see that, you guys kind of laugh and go with, the people down in the lower 48 will believe anything?
Right. And I actually live in the lower 48. So, but, I just work up here, but, yeah, I mean, it is. And I usually make a comment and then I get stepped on and, but it is kind of funny, but no, the bears up here are pretty healthy, both brown and polar bears. They're beautiful animals up here. So, but like I said, that's not to say that there's some type of climate change going on. I think that's pretty obvious. Last year we had floods up here that were crazy, and that's never happened before. But the bottom line was the snow fell on the wrong side of the Brooks Range, and when it melted, it created some real water issues. And they anticipated that this year, but it didn't happen, thank God. But because God, we have enough problems as it is.
Well, let me ask you this: up there, where you have, a great winter with it being dark, and you can see the stars like nowhere else probably in the world. Is there strange stuff going on up in the skies in Alaska?
I wish that was the case, but actually, the sky up here in the wintertime, when it's all dark, you might get 3 or 4 days where you can see the stars. Other than that, it's usually covered by a haze, usually fog or some other anomaly that just covers the sky, and you can't see it. On the other hand, I've seen some beautiful meteorites up here, and I know that one time, just looking through regular binoculars, you could actually see the rings of Saturn, but it was very close. It was, we knew it was going to be close, and we checked it out, and sure enough, you could actually see them with very powerful binoculars. But most of the time, you're lucky to see the northern lights, which this far up north are just pretty much green most of the time. And, not a lot of color to it. But you do see them. It's just you got to really look because there's a lot of light pollution up here on the oil field.
Wow, that's interesting. But there's the other part, like you remember Wendell Stevens and his reports about UFOs and saucers, parked on the ice up there and refueling, and him going up there and taking pictures. What do you think about those kind of reports with Wendell and UFO bases being up there because it's so remote?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I wouldn't discount it. I mean, I can't because after what I saw, how am I going to say, oh, that can't be, So basically I look at my story and say that, geez, I mean, how could I ever dispute anybody else's stuff? I don't care what the subject is. But it would make sense to me, honestly. I mean, it is pretty desolate out there in the Arctic Ocean, it's be a perfect place to hide something, in my opinion.
And let me ask you about the other rumors that have been flying around in ufology, and that is the pyramid up there in the mountains in Alaska. What's the scuttlebutt and the rumors on the streets up there about that?
I have not even read about that. I mean, I just slight information about it, and I kind of shrug it off myself. But who knows? Once again, I know that they're. I don't have an answer for you, Jimmy, because I don't know enough to even comment on it. I just haven't even looked into it at all.
And the other report of a sphinx being found up there, a great distance away from the pyramid, but a sphinx no less. Have you heard about that?
No, that's new to me too.
Yeah, Randy, you need to be our boots on the ground. And yeah, just look into it and see what you can find the next time you're up there and ask around and maybe, poke around. But, these stories are out there right now, and we've had Linda Moulton Howe on the show talking about it too as well. And it's just it's something that's very, very interesting. And just poke around and see what you can find out.
Well, there's a lot of good stories up here, that's for sure. I've got some friends that have shared what their elders have said, some of the native guys I work with, and some pretty bizarre stuff, UFO type stuff, and with bush pilots and whatnot. So it does exist. I mean, it is part of Alaska's history, I guess. But some of the stuff has never been told. But I hope to get a hold of a recording of an elder who was a pretty famous bush pilot up here, who told his daughter a story about his encounter while he was flying his small aircraft with a UFO, and I'm trying to get a copy of that. Recording, because he passed away, and to me, I think it would just be awesome to listen to that stuff. But
I look forward to it. See what you can do, and don't be a stranger, Randy.
Oh, I won't. I just want to say hi and say, boy, that was a great show tonight.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, and coming from you, that means a lot. Thank you so much, Randy. Behave.
All right, later. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
You got it. Randy Cole coming in strong too. By the way. All right. Oh, man, I got enough time for one more phone call. 323-825-5045. A nuclear reactor unit at Indian Point has been closed down due to repair of a water leak, plant officials have now said. New York's aging nuclear plant has been plagued by problems recently and is currently operating under a temporary license. Nuclear control room operators removed Unit 2 from service last Friday morning to allow for the completion of weld repairs to a pipe that had been leaking. Check this. Are you ready? A small amount of water into the Hudson River. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Kevin near St. Louis.
Hey, Kevin, how are you, man?
Hey, not bad. I just listened to Randy, and it was cool to hear him, and I also just got off work, and I just wanted to say I can't wait to listen to this interview because I've been waiting for it. I know you've been talking about having them for the last couple of months, and I've really been looking forward to it. Also, I just last night I listened to. Did you hear the interview with Linda Moulton Howe and Tom DeLonge and Bill Tompkins?
I read some of the excerpts from it. I haven't actually had the time to go and listen to it.
Yeah, it was as you would imagine it. It's pretty amazing too. So, I just can't get enough of these awesome interviews that you guys do, and I learned so much, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And tonight with Levenda, and last night with Road to Ruins with Dave Sheldon, that was a really fun time. And we're going to be at Roswell on Friday, but next week. Do we have, we're going to blow the doors off. Next week is going to be an amazing week on Fade to Black. So just get ready. And I know you just got home from work. Go back and listen to the Levenda interview tonight. He is the absolute best, man.
Yeah, I actually just finished reading Secret Machines the other night. It took me a couple months finally to finish it because I had to keep putting it down so I could keep learning, So it took me a while to read it because I just got so into the actual topic. But I just can't wait for book 2. Did he say when it's coming out?
He said, well, see, this is the thing with Peter. He's got a new book that's finished that's going to come out in about 2 months. Now, what that is, I can't actually say. Okay, I can't. I just can't. I have to respect. I have to respect Peter here, but I do know things. I know some things, man, and it's going to flip some people out. It really is.
Yeah, I just I remember my dad. My dad, he was into all this stuff years ago, and I used to think he was crazy. And I guess I owe him an apology nowadays.
Yeah, you know what? That goes for a lot of people, and I totally agree with you. And I keep bringing up this contact in the desert thing. Look, I've had some amazing sightings over the years, and Rita and I, the one sighting that we had when we were coming into the valley, this white ball that came down, was pretty amazing. But those are chance sightings. You know, that's just a random event that happens in life. And as great as it is, it's just a random event. This thing out of contact in the desert, and Rita and I were by ourselves in the car. But when you're around, hundreds of people, if not thousands, and you see something like this go down and you're not the only one, and what you saw, it's a pretty amazing thing. And I just have to back up, even though I have an open mind and I interview everybody and I hear everything. It almost makes me want to go back and go, you know what? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to because, you have something like that that you just can't explain. I can't explain it. And that's it. So when somebody tells you, man, I was out with my night vision and I saw this thing, you know what? You need to stop and listen. That's all I have to say because it was absolutely extraordinary. Hey, Kevin, I got to get out of here, man. Thank you so much for the phone call, brother.
I'll see you, Jimmy.
Have a great night.
You too, bye.
Yeah, I keep going back to that CITD thing, but, man. Okay, so check this out. I got to get a couple of these in here really quick. A Texas woman went to the hospital for jaw surgery, and she left the hospital speaking in a thick British accent. Yeah, and it's thanks to a rare neurological disorder, and her name is Lisa Alamia, and she was diagnosed with foreign accent syndrome. It's real, and it's a condition that has affected less than 100 people in the last century. After a procedure to correct an overbite, it left her with nerve damage 6 months ago. It's an extremely rare condition, very rare. And to have, 100 cases reported in the last 100 years, and it's real. She's from Texas, and she now speaks with a British accent. Okay, what I forgot. Let's see here. Let's see. Man, all of these are good. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll leave you on a high note. A man named Larry Gambles from Madison, Illinois, won it's a small village south of Chicago, won over $1 million in the Illinois lottery when his ticket matched all 5 numbers on the 7th of June. It's the second time he's won the lottery in 9 years. He did it with the same winning numbers both times. His winning numbers, are you listening to me? His high school basketball team jerseys. Yeah. And his name is Gambles. And that's been vetted. That's a real story. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster, Drew, the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA, The Planet. Thank you, Peter Levenda, the very best. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tomorrow night, Fader Night, John Rappaport. Be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.